We still have 30 seconds.
It's right.
If not, we have to wait anyway.
Yeah.
That was pretty quick. We got the hands up. That wasn't real. That was just John.
John, that was pretty good. Go with audio calling costume.
So are you gonna go to the teacher recognition
Yes, we
study at Campbell?
Yes,
You're gonna go to that?
it's
It's the 23rd.
I always go with that.
So to the public, we're gonna wait for one more member to have quorum inside the boundaries of our town. Oh, and there she is, yay! And now we have quorum inside the boundaries of Sunnyvale. Before we start, I wanted to extend our very heartfelt congratulations and celebrations to our board member who just have one extra student for our town.
Future student.
Yes, a future student. That's the way how we keep up with enrollment. And other methods.
One way.
We've already accounted in the demographer's report.
The demographer report, there it is. So, and that's why Aileen is not here today. So it's now 6:01 and we are calling to order this regular meeting of the Sunnyvale School District Board of Education. This meeting is available in English and Spanish. And please, will the translator give us instruction on the translation services available for our community?
Yes, good evening, everyone. The Zoom interpretation feature will be used in the Zoom meeting for English and Spanish support. All participants on this call must select the language of preference by clicking the language and the host turns on the interpretation feature. This is found in the world icon located on the feature panel. Interpretation for this meeting will be conducted simultaneously. Thank you for your attention and collaboration. Buenas noches. Se utilizará la función de interpretación de Zoom para soporte en inglés y español. Todos los participantes de esta llamada deben seleccionar su idioma de preferencia haciendo clic en el idioma correspondiente cuando el anfitrión active la función de interpretación. Dicha función se encuentra en el panel de herramientas en el icono del globo terráqueo. El modo de interpretación para esta reunión será el simultáneo. Gracias por su atención y colaboración.
Thank you. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. And now, please join me. We're gonna read our brief acknowledgement of life and land. Sunnyvale School District is located on the ancestral and unceded land of the Ukwima Ognon tribe, who have peacefully honored and cared for this land and for thousands of years. We recognize that every member of the Sunnyvale community continues to benefit from the use and occupation of this land. We acknowledge our responsibility to learn from the wisdom of the Ognon people and to consider how we might work to repair injustices and to move forward together in honorable ways. And now, so I would like to move to approve the agenda, but I think there is a small change that Mike wanted to propose.
Yes. So just open here. There it is. On review and discussion, if we can reverse or just move 9C to the beginning of the review and discussion, because those are going to be guest presenters. So the earlier we can do that, the better for the sake of time. So if you can move 9C, make that 9A, and then follow.
Switch it. Okay, perfect. With that change, may I have a motion to approve the agenda with the new change?
I I move approval of the agenda with the amendment of moving 9C to the beginning of 9.
Second.
Perfect. Can we have a vote? If you approve, please say aye.
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 Okay, with that, we pass the agenda with that change today. And we are gonna move towards, I don't know, oh, wait. Everybody says aye. Do we have any discussion from the public after we approve the agenda? No. Well, there was nobody. Okay, with that, we move to our study session today. Welcome and thank you for being here with our beginning of the year report. Please go ahead.
All right, good evening, board and members of the public. I'll get us started on behalf of the teaching and learning team, and you'll see other members of our team shortly. For this study session, we wanted to give a brief introduction into where we are as a team in supporting the sites. We're going to go through our academic data and most importantly, our next steps, attendance, behavior, social, emotional, cultural data, and again, importantly, our next steps, and then really give ample time for the board for discussion and asking questions. So let's get started with our just background. I know you saw this earlier from Dr. Gallagher, but when we looked at the school year and our Let's Go theme, we had a theory of action. And what I want to call attention to is this piece around, we want to really support our teachers in their practices of intervention and instruction at the classroom level, because we know our teachers ultimately make the biggest difference in the lives of our students. So how do we support them and really make a difference for our Hispanic, Latino, English learners? So when we looked at where we were, Dr. Gallagher set us up here. I wanted to call attention to the last 2 bullet points, which is we need to do better than attaining modestly better results in some areas. So we own this and feel this deeply at the central office level as well as the site level. And also we need to act with urgency to attain significantly better results. So that gives us some grounding as to where we are right now. With that being said, we have some guiding questions for the board to consider, and you can take this offering, and I'm sure there are other questions that will come up for you as we go through the presentation. But what additional information might be helpful in clarifying connections and informing your next steps, or our next steps, and what direction and policies can the board provide input on that may help direct student achievement? And I know that there was a question about whether or not we're asking staff the same question, and we also are asking our staffs the same question of how can we better support you to improve student achievement. And with these guiding questions, I'm going to turn it over to John Watts to walk us through our beginning of the year data.
Hello. Okay, so this is showing our CASP, our state test, that 3rd through 8th grade takes. And then I broke it into, so you can see the overall 3rd through 5th, that's how all students performed, with the greens being degrees of proficiency. And then next to it, I have 3rd through 5th English learners, and then drilling down a little bit more specifically, 3rd through 5th Hispanic English learners. So you can see that it's about similar performance between both our English learners as a whole and our Hispanic English learners there in that cohort 3rd through 5th. In 21-22, we had some modest gains, I think, to this next year, the last year that we took it, 22-23, but it's not enough. And as she said, this is like, we need more than just a year's worth of growth because these students and how far they are behind, just progressing that 1 year is not enough. And we're continuing to see, even with the progress that we're making, it's not enough and it's not fast enough. And then you can see that also how that plays out if you're a 6th through 8th grader and still an English learner, and if we have not done the best that we can with is serving them as well as we can, we see what plays out as they continue to progress, and some of those gaps widen even more. And then if you look, and I'll just really quickly kind of go back and forth so that you can see it's, so that's the math. This was ELA, back to math. So just, briefly looking at the colors overall, you're seeing that it's not a huge improvement. So we're not seeing that we are serving the groups that are our focus groups as well as we need to be by far. And then if we look at, this is NWEA is our local assessment that we do. So we take this throughout the year at different benchmark periods. This one was the current year that we're in, this is the beginning of the year in math. And so basically it is the same trend. And then in ELA, it is the same trend again. So the reason that I'm not showing here, you'll notice with the local assessments, we do assess kinder, first and second grade also. But I omitted it from this graph because we made quite a drastic shift in how we're assessing them, the protocol, and kind of our focus with primary literacy. So, and that's why I'm not displaying it yet here because we're still kind of looking at how this changes and really how I can put together a good story to see what the impact is of these shifts. So we've only gone one, we just closed our first beginning of the year assessment window. And so she's going to talk a little bit more about what those shifts are, but I'm really hopeful that this is the right way that we're moving. And we're going to be finding some of these gaps that we had not previously identified at all. And already with the initial data that I'm looking at, we're finding huge measures of, I guess, accuracy in identifying problems that we knew might have existed, but we couldn't name this is what it was. And I think that's going to play out a lot, and hopefully we'll be able to, what we learn with kinder, first and second this year, I'm hoping that we would be able to expand that and use that also to apply to our upper grades and find the same patterns. So going into what the changes are and kind of instructional shift, back to Christina.
Thanks, John. So as John explained, we're working on refining what foundational literacy looks like in our district. We've had a focus on foundational literacy, and also in the last year, we've wanted to make some tweaks. And the reasons why are, we know that English language arts and ELD are intertwined. So for our English learners, like we want to have strong English language arts instruction that supports their English language development. And then we know that this is the beginning of a series of board study sessions. So we'll get more into specifically how we're supporting ELs at our next session. The other piece is we were seeing that students were not carrying reading growth from K1-2, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, into grades 3 through 5. And so part of our work was investigating why are they not carrying those gains into other grades. And part of it had to do with how we were assessing students and what that data was inflating for us. And the last part is as you know, publicly, the science of reading has really come to the forefront, and we really want to make sure that we incorporate that research into our best practices. So that's some background into what we're doing with foundational literacy. For elementary, what we're working on is our new phonics adoption, so that's really great reading, and implementing that at grades kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. I'm not talking about TK and our play-based learning, but that is also going to be instrumental in giving our kids a boost in terms of social emotional well-being into learning academics at kindergarten, but focusing more on the academics right here. The other piece is really working on our interventions at kindergarten through second grade, as well as third through fifth grade. So John mentioned that we've done a rehaul. What we found is that our teachers were working tirelessly to get gains in reading, and then seeing that students were not making progress past the old letter levels. So previously we were using Fountas and Pinnell levels of like A, B, C, D, and students may stay at C level for a number of months. And teachers were working hard, but not like struggling to figure out how could they get to a diagnostic level of moving students past C. So what we did this year is we brought in the core literacy assessment that has very discrete skills. Our teachers are assessing on those discrete skills, and really great reading and UFly both give us targeted instructional materials to meet our students' needs at these smaller levels. The other part of interventions is really working with our direct student services TOSAs who are on special assignment, working with our classroom teachers to build their capacity and grace for themselves as they learn a new curriculum and learn a new way of teaching reading. Working with our paraeducators because they hold an important role in our classrooms, both in supporting intervention and supporting the classrooms for our students. Oh, that was the last part of that slide. Moving into middle school, we know that there's also a need for foundational literacy refinement. So at the middle school level, what we're working on is a couple of different things. One is effective first instruction, focused on our English learner students. So if we go back to our earlier theory of practice, focusing on English learner students will improve outcomes for all of our students. So an example of this might look like increasing the structure of student talking classrooms. So the more students are talking, the more they're able to generate language. That's at the classroom teacher level. That's also our co-teachers, because we have a co-teaching model at our middle schools. It's also our para-educators. Our middle schools are also working on data cycles, so looking at, again, small skills and tracking where our students are, so they can target instruction. We have our new Amplify adoption at middle school, and kudos to our middle school teachers who are really diving in, wrestling with it. Our students are doing the work online and in books, but kudos to everybody for working on our new Amplify adoption. We're also working on redesigning English language development at the middle school, and we'll probably get more into this at our next study session, but what this is including is looking at our ELD 1 and 2 courses, our course placement criteria for the students in the rooms, also looking at the use of curriculum, because we have our Get Ready, Get Reading, and Bridges curriculum, and looking at best practices. Looking at our EL support classes, so that happens during AST time at Sunnyvale Middle School and flex time at Columbia Middle School. And possibly exploring curriculum focused specifically on our LTELs, our long-term English learners. And then finally, with Jane Chen, our middle school department chairs have been working on building their capacity and leadership, like how do they better lead their teams, so we can be focused on students and our data cycles. And then for math, just want to give some background and again, our next steps here. So in terms of background, prior to this year, we had a wide range of math materials being used at K-5 and also 6-8. As you know, the new math framework was adopted by the California Department of Education just this summer. A little behind, but adopted now, so we're glad to have that. And our next steps include our math curriculum adoption at K-5, so that's our illustrative math. We have our first staff development day scheduled for October, focused on illustrative math. Sites have been working to support teachers there, and also this is a very different way of us teaching math aligned with the new math framework and developing mathematical practices. We also want to work on developing interventions and also not overwhelm the number of new that we have going on. And we're working on doing something and doing it well. So we're working on developing interventions, and our focus is on implementation of illustrative at K-5. This includes interventions with our DSS TOSAs and the classroom teacher and our parent educators. And then at the middle school, we're looking to begin a math pilot, because this is another place where we have several different curriculums used at different grade levels and for different courses. And then our professional development days for the math departments are focused on mathematical discourse. So working on, again, structured student discourse, so students are talking about math and really exploring the foundations of the mathematical conceptual framework there. And then again, Jane's working with developing leadership skills with our math department chairs. Finally, this is a slide that talks about supporting our sites with academic gains, but it also leads into our social, emotional, cultural pieces and attendance and behavior. But really, as a central office, we've really been working on supporting our principals so that they can lead this work at the site level. So what this looks like is our principals and assistant principals have personal learning plans for themselves. There's a principal support team, also affectionately known as Run TMC, Mike, Tasha, Christina. There's also the work with Tracy Benson around anti-racist coaching and rapid data cycles. We're also working with Santa Cruz Silicon Valley New Teacher Project on the walkthroughs and how do we see things in the classroom and how do we give feedback. And we're also tying that into a book read that we're doing as an instructional leadership team around compassionate leadership. And then finally, we keep working on how do we work as a central office to support the school sites so that the school sites can be focused on instruction. At the site level, we know that instructional leadership is second only to the classroom instruction in terms of academic gains or what the experience is for our students. And so at the site level, our principals are working on developing their instructional leadership, further developing. This is an ongoing process for everybody. They've also been working tirelessly on updating their data teams or PLCs, professional learning communities. And that's reflection around that rapid data cycle. How are they collecting data so that they can track students in their growth faster and also intervene more quickly? And then another piece that's connected to this at the site level is focusing on the classroom walkthroughs and providing formative feedback to staff, like both what's working well and also wonderings about what they want to change and do next. All right, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Dean.
Okay, so as we move forward, first I have to give acknowledgements to Chin Chin Chu and to Paul Slayton. They are not able to be here this evening, so I'm gonna present this content on their behalf. There we go. And so you'll see in some of the slides that are coming forth, we kind of went back beyond last year in comparison because of some of the data and the relevancy of the data given the pandemic years and having authentic data. So for this first segment, I'm going to speak to you a little bit about attendance. Ideally for ADA and for students attending, we want kids to be in school at least 90% of the time. That's kind of what we look at. So that means like 10 or less absences per school year is what we're looking at. So as you look at this data, you'll see that we are more on track this year if you compare from last school year to this school year with regards to students attending consistently and being present. You'll see that the gains there and we're moving in the right direction. You'll also note that in looking at our EL population in comparison to just ELs in general, there's a general theme there, pretty consistent in that. So there's not a discrepancy or something for us to see if something different is going on. We're not where we want to be yet, but the data is progressing and moving in the right direction. So overall this year at this time for the data that we have in, overall school attendance is better. And then we are on similar improvements for our EL and our Hispanic populations. Okay. This is kind of re-summarizing some of these items and kind of what have we been doing. So one of the things we did this year in support with Paul and Shamila, who kind of developed a brochure this year that went out to all the schools and families. They also developed a magnet this year. So that magnet can go on the refrigerator, shows what the school days are, when you should be present, when you should not be, so that we can just reinforce when is school open and be present the majority of the time. Also sending messages to the sites so that principals can push those out to their communities, just being consistent with the messaging and parts of school. The nurses are also trying to reinforce that in their practices around if a child's not feeling well and when is it okay still to be at school. And so coming out of the pandemic, we kind of aired all the way on the far side, I guess you could say, with regards to when you should be at school. And so we're trying to balance that out right now. So we're hitting it a little bit more right. In addition to that, we continue to work with our student attendance teams at the site, which is a sub team or a dedicated team at most sites as a part of the MTSS site program at each of the sites, so we can continue to monitor what's happening and what's going on when students are not present. But even more importantly, celebrating, especially for a student who has been absent, celebrating when they are present. So that's a big part of that. We continue to coordinate and work with our truancy court through the County Office of Ed and the Protective Services, just to kind of reinforce the practices that we have for families. With regards to behavior, this is a good snapshot of kind of what's going on. So you'll see that we're about the same at that 99% across the board for TK through 5, 6 through 8, as well as when we look to our EL and Hispanics. And so just want to kind of describe this data just a little bit. So this data comes from our Swiss database system and feeds in. And so this is our typical behavior data. But when we have students who have more significant behavioral needs, they are not being dumped into this data pool here because now they have a dedicated team, they have dedicated case management. In addition to that, some of these students might be in special education, and so through their IEP plans, that's being progress monitored through there. So some of their data is in here, but not the significant portion of it. So I just kind of wanted to outline that exception. And I thought it would be good here just to kind of give you a sense of what the staff are reporting out as it relates to students who have behavioral needs. Sometimes we get kids in and we know nothing about them, right? And then we got to get them into a classroom. And I just want to kind of highlight one situation we had at Ellis Elementary School where we had a student come in, hadn't really been to school in ever, and was much older. So they had to know what is a school, how to do school, like, and so the team just really pulled together there. And I think the celebration that I want to emphasize here is we went for a student who came to us with special needs, was placed into a special day classroom, and from there, with the additional supports and resources throughout the year, was able to transition from that SDC back to a general education classroom. And so I just want to highlight that because there's many stories out there like that that help to support the work and the behavioral needs that our students and families need. So just wanted to highlight that. With regards to suspensions, we went back a year just to kind of want to see where were we prior to the pandemic, because kind of the data in between, it's there, but it's quite an equal match, if you will. So we went back until 18-19 in comparison. You'll see that in 18-19, we're about at 1.4% suspension rate, and we're now at still at about 2.1. So we're balancing it out. Things are coming down, and we continue to reemphasize with our PBIS teams, continue to support social, emotional, and mental health supports to our school teams. So where are we headed? With regards to behavior, definitely continue doing the things that we've been doing. One thing that has popped up is really how to more effectively integrate our social, emotional supports throughout the day and also targeted, especially at our early learning years. So our pre-K, our TK, and our Ks, just really jump-starting that support for them. Continue to expand upon our restorative practices as appropriate, site by site, and just kind of continuing to develop those skills. We were identified last year for differentiated assistance. The team has done really good work around that. And what to do, what we need to do. I think they have one more meeting around this. And so we hope to not be in this classification as we round out this school year. And our teams continue to refine our MTSS processes. So we're actually in the midst of that right now, developing just how to make that system more efficient so that we are more effective at utilizing it so that students are actually getting what they need as rapidly as possible. So that's where we're headed with some of those supports. So with our McKinney-Vento families, last year was an unprecedented year. I've been here, I'm going to my 11th year, and we have never had as many families as what we had last year. It was quite a new, or like we were just like dumbfounded by it, like what happened, right? But want to definitely send congrats to the team for really focusing on that. I think our collaboration with student support services and enrollment just to really identify students and families as soon as possible. And then we kind of have streamlined our plan. We know what to do. We're efficient with that. There's case management for students at each site in support with the social worker team. And so just kind of looking at the numbers in last year, we were at 49. We're down to about 37 now.
Same time last year?
Well, I looked at the whole year and kind of where we are right now. So I don't know where we'll end this year, but looking at where we are right now, that's kind of where we are. And in the 22-23 school year, I think we started at about 65 families. So we were pretty significant to start the year last school year. Just wanted to kind of read, just to kind of give you a vignette of, you know, I think one of the questions you asked was kind of like, you know, what's happening and kind of what we're doing. So I'm just going to take a moment, if that's okay, just to kind of read this. This year, we've had a parent with 3 children enrolled in grades kinder through 5. Because of our historic work with school social workers, sighted men, and the family, we have a fairly solid understanding of the needs of the family has faced over the years. Because of enrollment, one student needed to start the year at a homeschool, the other two attending at a previous site. The parent has begun to face employment concerns, and given the severity of the situation, we were able to move the student back to the current school so that all siblings would be able to be at one school site. In addition to that, we were able to provide temporary transportation so the parent was able to not have concerns and also be able to find new employment. This is an example of what we really want at all of our schools, which is a no wrong door concept, so that we have multiple departments and supports working at wherever students are, so that the family gets what they need and students get what they need. So I just wanted to kind of share that, and there's multiple of those from last school year. Okay. With regards to our social, emotional, and cultural learning, I think we're on track. The data kind of supports that. And looking at that, we definitely have more students that are feeling that they have what they need to be successful than not. So to me, that's a positive for certain. Data is still rolling in for this school year with regards to socio-emotional learning for our students. And this is an area we continue to refine. And I think you as a board have also asked just kind of, being able to get more intimate around this data. And that's one of the things we plan to do as we move forward. And we are also hopeful through our strategic planning process that this will be an area where we're really able to capture voices on a much deeper level than we have in several years. So we're going to be excited about that. So I mentioned some of this a little bit earlier, just kind of talking about some of the work that has been done and will continue to do. We can continue to reinforce the framework around social, emotional, cultural framework that we have. We continue to provide professional development around this. And one of the things we're also, like I shared, we're trying to do a better job of integrating that in all professional development and actions that we're doing so that it's running through and flowing through the school day and everything else that we do. And then we have more sites that are actually utilizing and teachers that are utilizing our second step program as we can access, which right now actively is that they're pretty much daily using it. And that's about 43% of the staff at this time. Okay, kind of round this out a little bit with the socio-emotional, continue to support the process of our culture climate teams or PBIS team or a blend of the two depending on the site, but continuing to support this as it's a core of what we do and critical for academic performance for our students, continuing to utilize best practices as I've shared, and just continuing to provide toolkits and supports to staff so they don't have to think about it. There's something there for them to use with students on an ongoing basis. And then lastly, continuing to support this process through our MTSS work. So lots of things connecting. We're trying to be sure that it's not this or that, but it's all of it together, working together seamlessly. So that's kind of a bit of the work. And with that, we will start with questions, comments you may have at this time.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation. Is there any clarifying before the questions from the comments from the public?
I had a question about the, just a clarifying question when you mentioned I was, a clarifying question?
I think the clarifying before.
I couldn't tell if you were asking the public.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm asking Tasha. So there's on one of the slides, it was about differentiated assistance on slide 18 to review suspensions. Is that differentiated assistance? Is that like the MTSS process, or is that like, was there a disproportionality of some sort? That was my question.
There was a disproportionality of suspensions and both for the differentiated assistance, which is coming through a dashboard, but also as a part of our CCIS identification. That's coming up, and it's pointing again to some of our Hispanic students in particular. And so, so just forcing us and pushing us harder to be more cognizant of that support. So that's a classification that has come to us from the state.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we can go to public comments and questions. If there is any member of the public who wants to have questions about this item, if you're present, please, yes, if you can put your ID and your information there, well, your information in the card. And if you are online, please raise your hand for speaking.
Brewster.
We're gonna wait for a minute.
Thank you, Brewster.
There's an online hand. Yes, we have online hands and we have, well, do we start online this time?
Well, you might as well because she's ready.
Yes. Okay, so now it's time for a public comment on this study session and this particular item. So by our board by law 9323, the board shall not prohibit public criticism of its policies, procedures, programs, services, act, or omissions. During these public comments, we encourage speakers to discuss issues with civility, to treat people whose opinions differ from their own with respect, and to focus on ideas, policies, and values. So we normally have 3 minutes per person, unless we have bigger crowd, but I think that limiting this session to 20 minutes in total. So, perfect. Today we're gonna start online. Peggy, I think. Go ahead. And remind you have to mute.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yep. Yes.
Thanks. Thank you so much for this presentation. It's really interesting to see it all laid out like this. I've been hearing, I'm just wondering what you've been hearing from teachers in terms of the Let's Go motto. I've been hearing very informally from a bunch of teachers that I've been talking to, that it's kind of like, it feels like they're kind of on the spot, and I really recognize that feeling, you know, from being a teacher at Mountain View, like, you know, kind of being a little bit anxious about, you know, being just walked in on all the time and just, you know, the accountability aspect. So I'm wondering what kind of response you're getting in terms of feedback from staff. And I know that you're not really able to respond to me directly, but I'd just like to know if there's any kind of conversations around that. And thank you very much for all your work here.
Okay, thank you for your comment. And we also need to identify, I forgot about that. Well, we know Peggy, but can you please remind us of your full name and the school, your school alliance? Affiliation, sorry.
Well, we can do that next time.
I already removed your permission to talk.
Oh,
Next
okay,
time.
sorry about that. And do we have anyone online? Yes?
That was it.
Huh?
That was it.
Oh, that was it. Okay, perfect. So now please come to the podium. We have Arti Ramaswamy, and please come ahead and
Oh, I need to go. Okay, sorry.
yeah, yes, yeah, because we have the translator online.
Oh, okay, cool. I feel very important, okay. So I think I missed part of the presentation, I came a little late, but I read it online. One question was related to the performance of EL and Hispanic speakers in the
Can you talk into
standardized,
the mic so I can hear you
the
better?
standardized test. And I was wondering about the plan to overcome that, how to narrow the achievement gap between the Hispanic speakers and the EL speakers and the normal student population. That was a question for you. I was wondering if you guys have considered looking into education. The reason I'm here today is to talk about technology and education technology tools, and I'm going to put that in the theme for all the agenda items. So I just wanted to check if that's something that you guys looked at, and there's so many interesting tools out in the market, and now all the kids in the school have a device, and whether the district as a whole is looking into the technology ecosystem and developing a plan for the ecosystem. So it may not be the same set of apps that are used for the normal people who can speak English versus the Hispanic speakers, and the whole communication tools are also different. So that's the topic I wanted to talk about. And I had a question for you. So I guess you guys answered, I don't know. So I had one more question for you. So the question was more related to the social cell assessment, I think you guys did. And I was curious to know why only it is a lower percentage of EL and Hispanic speakers who showed strengths in the 50 topics you surveyed. Is there any reason for it, and what is the assessment? What is the plan to address that?
Can you repeat the last part of your, I
You
couldn't
gotta
quite
talk
hear
into the
you.
mic so we can hear you.
'Cause you're
Sure.
talking about-
Okay, yeah, I'm talking to them, yeah. So the second part of the question was related to the social economic cell assessment that Tasha presented. I was curious to know why much lower percentage of EL and Hispanic speakers showed strength in the 50 topics surveyed, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a much lower number. I thought 85 to 50 seemed a big.
Thank you. So, and I can read this just in case, how a provision of the Brown Act Government Code 54954.2 preclude any action. What is it?
Last minute's public comment on non-agenda items.
Oh, in non-agenda, yeah, because we cannot comment to this, but we can talk about that? Okay, perfect, then, yeah, sorry about that. If
So-
anyone wants to answer that, other than the board.
I think you have to, you wanna restate it, or you wanna ask the question?
Okay,
But I think Tasha got it. Tasha, do you want to do the one about the, let's go? Want to take that one?
Sure thing. I
Okay.
can definitely take that one. We're trying to balance that out to let everyone know that we're definitely still being supportive. I think the emphasis around the social emotional is not just for students, but that's for our staff as well. It's definitely, how can I say it? It is new behavior for us in Sunnyvale. Like we are a nice district. I talk to Dr. Gallagher about this all the time, and we're still a nice district, but now we're gonna be warm demanders a little bit more often, and that is creating some discomfort. I will not say it's not, but we are addressing it case by case, classroom by classroom, campus by campus, through the supports that we're providing, but also that when staff are coming to us with concerns that they have or challenges that they're having, we're trying to be very responsive and turning around. And even if we don't have the answer or the solution, we are putting processes and systems in place to address needs and concerns that they have. So we're working on our communication. Dr. Valentine talked about one of the study sessions we're doing about being a compassionate leader. So we're doing other things that we need to do as a district leadership team as well, as we're supporting, and of course our principals are a big part of that. So I think it's the culture shift, which is a positive and maybe perceived negative, but as I think about the work with Dr. Benson, he says, if people are not uncomfortable, you're probably doing it wrong. And so I'm gonna kind of, in that theme, say that I feel like we're hitting it about right. There's discomfort, but we're just trying to be sure that people bring themselves back down and know that we're in the trenches with them and just not here to catch you not doing well, but we're here to support you to do better.
And a term that I would use, and Peggy, I really appreciate that you brought this up because it's actually critical. It's what we're about this year. So discomfort is one thing, productive discomfort is something else. So like that's a term that works for me. I'm uncomfortable with, or I have discomfort about the data I just saw. And I have discomfort about it's my responsibility to move that data. But then I also need to get support, and I feel supported. So that's the rub. We don't want people to feel discomfort to the point that they are less productive. We want them to feel a productive discomfort. So I really appreciate that.
Bridget?
I also think that sometimes, in people I talk to, the people who are the most like doing a lot of work in this space, like really looking at the data and being very intentional, they're saying those are the people who are the most worried about not producing more, you know what I mean? Because they're like, I'm dying here, I'm doing everything I possibly can, and like, how can I even do one more thing? Like, how, like, you know what I mean? Like, they just really are taking it deeply to heart. So I understand it is stressful to like make that, you know, make the moral mandate of looking at this data really carefully, making that more visible and just talking about it, like it's a problem, you know?
Yeah, so I wonder also about when I visit places like San Miguel. I remember talking with those there.
Mhm.
And one of the things they were telling me, like, well, we have these kids who after all this year, they're still behind. And then we were feeling very bummed about it, but then we realized that they didn't just move forward 1 year, they moved 2 years in one. They were just 2 behind before. So so there is also some movement towards the right place, but the need is too big. So with that in mind, that there are, you know, bright spots, how are we assessing the interventions and the doses? Do we need more, less? Are they working? Do we have the right amount? We need more? Are they not working? We need less? Like, how are we working with that?
So I think right now we're working off of like, how do we have equitable distribution of our intervention TOSAs? Like, so based on the number of students at the site and the distance from proficient. I think there's always a case of like, how do we increase intervention services and also increase what the instruction looks like in the classroom? Because we know that in the short term, a pull-out intervention gives us some benefit. And also if we can't support our teachers in improving their instructional practice during the day, we can't maintain that gain because our students spend most of the day with the classroom teacher, which is why we know they're so important. So it's really that balancing act of having our interventionists, making sure that they have the right curriculum and the right assessments and that it matches what the classroom teacher is doing, and we're closer like there right now. And also making sure that our instructional coaches are supporting the teachers in the classroom with trying new things, giving themselves grace. We don't expect perfection, it's always progress. Progress over perfection every day.
Nice.
We'll address the other
Can I
question.
keep going?
There was a question about social emotional assessment and sort of the achievement gap in that, which I appreciate as well.
Yes, we actually did, that analysis is correct, and we did notice it, and it's specifically as we looked at our Hispanic students with the panorama data from 2022, and in the fall of 2022. We noticed that, and so much so that we incorporated it into our comprehensive early intervening plan to take a careful look at that and to provide more targeted socio-emotional supports to the students who actually were identified in that. And so we're targeting specifically as a sub portion of that plan, the 3rd through 5th grade students as a result of that, because that was a theme between that particular group of students. It wasn't 100% clear maybe what contributed to it, but it was around kind of self-efficacy and reflection of their capacity and their reflection of themselves. So we're trying to push around that and support that. And we'll take a look at that with our upcoming data and see if we see some improvements based upon when we first saw that data to now.
And there was also a question about the use of technology to narrow the gap.
Yeah, it makes both of us.
Okay.
Oh, they're both gonna stand.
Sure, yeah, I think we're always looking at what technology, what tools we can use for different purposes, and we definitely don't shy away from looking at technology for individual use cases. So we're not trying to just get one thing and like, oh, this doesn't apply to every single one, let's ditch it. Like, we do have things that we do that might apply to one specific group and be helpful. I know that one thing that we were doing, I think Jeremy, you can chime in too, with I think English learners in the middle school. I know that there was some movement there about providing iPads, and then also looking at like what would be putting some structure to it. So if we have an English learner that has not been reclassified in middle school, what additional tools could we provide?
Yes, I think we're maintaining our infrastructure that we have with the Chromebook one-to-one in the middle school, Chromebooks in the upper grades in the elementary, and iPads. And so then it's just really working with the instructional teaching and learning side to kind of hone the number of apps that we're doing. Because I think we had that conversation several years ago with the tech plan and the right amount of offerings. And so we're just trying to find the right amount of not having so many tools that are overwhelming, and then being able to provide training on an ongoing basis so the teachers know how to utilize those instructional tools in order to get the instructional outcomes for the groups that we're talking about. So I think we are aware of trying out those different tools just within the infrastructure that we already have in place, and then always trying to stay one step ahead and providing the tools, but in an appropriate manner where we have the appropriate data sharing agreements with the company. It's sustainable. We have licensing. There's a lot of back-end support that we need to do as well. So that's kind of an ongoing component that's within our infrastructure now. So I think we're heading it just right, but again, we're not done because it's kind of an ongoing.
And some of the ideas and the things that we try out come from like smaller use cases or success cases that we'll find in a school. So I don't know who or where it kind of started. I know there was a couple examples at Ellis that I helped out, like with the coach that was there, Morel. She had a newcomer that was in a classroom. She found out, I think through doing our using NWA as a screener, we have a Spanish version. And so they did a quick assessment to see what kind of literacy the student had in their home language. And it turned out that they had a pretty good background in Spanish. And so we were able, in a grade level that normally doesn't have iPads, we were able to get an iPad for that student and then set it up with Google Translate so that at least in this transitional stage, they can be following along in the textbook. Because if you haven't used Google Translate recently, like I just got back a while ago from another country where I was constantly holding my phone up, looking at everything as it live translates, which is pretty neat. So this student was able to hold the iPad over the textbook, like a dense history textbook, and still be able to consume the content and still participate. And then funny on the other side, they were writing full-on essays and actually participating, hitting the standards, understanding, comprehension, writing what they were understanding in the social studies lesson, turned in the paper, and the teacher also used the iPad to translate it to English and see what they wrote. And then this is where I had the conversation, because I only had a brief interaction where she was asking hey, is this a possibility? How would we kind of set this up? And then afterwards I debriefed with her and she was sharing this story. And she's like, it was really cool because had we not had that interaction and just tried that out, I'd have no clue that they had all this background and they were able to read, comprehend, and write a really, really good article about what they had read. So she's like, I totally see the skills are all there, which is what we want to see. We want to see what are their strengths. Let's bridge as much as we can while they're still developing the language without being, a tool because we don't want to just put them on. I know a tendency sometimes if you don't know other tools, it's oh, let's just stick them on Duolingo or this app, which is not as beneficial as, no, how can we bridge to still be included in the conversation, in the curriculum, right there in the classroom, hitting the same standards. And so that's a small example. But once we find something like that, then the conversation comes where we're okay, so how could maybe this is something that we do when we get a new student, okay, we assess the language. So we're trying to systematize some of this so we can think more strategically and it's not just a one-off. And we get lucky because this one person comes up with the idea or something. We want to think, okay, that was successful. How can we just make that across the board something that we do? So I feel like we're constantly trying to kind of build out that toolkit.
So I'm watching the time for you. You want to be done by 7. And
Yes, Bridget and then Nancy. Oh, Nancy, you want to talk? Do you have a question?
So two things. Thing number one was, what can you do to help the board learn more? And what struck me is that you're doing some seminal reading around compassionate leadership. It would be very helpful if you shared what it was that you were reading with the board so that we could adopt that same or understand that same mindset so that we're echoing what it is that we understand it enough that we can echo it when we're having conversations, not only among ourselves, but with district staff and with other leaders in the district, moving around and visiting sites. Number two, I read an article that I sent off to Dr. Gallagher about dual immersion students and the challenges that they have. What strikes me that's applicable to this is echoing off of what just happened. We really need to drive down home and know what our students know so that we can work off those strengths. I imagine, and it was echoed in this article, that it is extremely frustrating for kids who are at higher grade levels to be able to engage in conversation because they don't have the academic language that they need in order to be able to hit those key moments. And I think that instead of making academic language a challenge, we should make it more visible, not only for students, but for parents as well. If you don't know where you're going, how do you know when you get there? So that would be something that I would like to see more visible and communicated to families and parents to help bridge that gap of how good is good enough? What is it that I need to know? What key words, what key concepts, so I can continue to move forward, and those key concepts could equally be translated in the home language so that there's clarity in conversation, and that it's not as much of a mystery or a challenge of English language acquisition and academic success.
I didn't hear a question.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I'd like to piggyback on what Nancy was saying about family engagement. I really think that, in the packet review, I'd asked for the Hispanic numbers, not just the Hispanic ELs, because we had everyone, then we had ELs and Hispanic ELs, but the Hispanic numbers are actually very, very low compared to everyone else as well. And that was one of our board's focuses for this year, was to look at supporting and, better serving the Hispanic community. So, for Nancy, since I've been on the board, you've been asking for like website or standardized, understanding of academic language and practices that we see other districts have. So, I appreciate that. I hear that from you annually. I think that would be a great idea into looking into that. But I also think that the back to school nights and the parent-teacher conferences, some schools were prioritize the translations facilities, the translation services for Hispanic or for families who needed it, and other schools, it was not as much of a priority, or maybe they just didn't have as much experience for it with it. And I feel like we could do a better job as a district with the welcoming and the family engagement, because if the teacher is the primary contact with the families and getting everyone involved, I think that that's a critical relationship. And I don't know, exactly how it is at every site, but I know it isn't handled the same way at every site. So maybe there's some, best practices that we could learn and build on from the schools that really have it down. And then the second thing I wanted to say was just in general, that going forward, it would be great for us to be able to have the access to the current CASP data that you all have for the beginning of year scores, or the current, the current information, because I know that those families were all sent that data over the summer. And if we go onto the CASP website now, the only data that the public can see is from 2 years ago. So we don't even have the numbers that the families got over the summer of how their student was performing. So that would be an ask for me, and then the third ask would be about just Hispanic in general. I think that ought to be a category that we follow and track. Okay.
Okay, following that, and I talked to you about this impacted review, that we want always to see, for the last 2 years, we have been focusing on the Hispanic and how they're back, and asking always to have them as a special category made us prove or realize that they are not just the ELs, but they are also, even when they are reclassified, they are behind in everything. So we need to pay attention to that and to keep it as, in the forefront of everything we do. We did notice after, we went to all the open houses, that there are definitely some schools that do way better than others in attending to the Spanish speaker families and opening them, welcoming them to school. One of the things I noticed that it was done great, for example, at Vargas, was that the grade teachers, they were teachers per grade, where they have the parents who didn't speak Spanish, who didn't speak English, or weren't comfortable, facing on the whole English thing because they might get confused or something. They didn't want to lose anything. So they had a special session per grade for the parents with a translator. And then they were the other per grade without translation. So that will give a space for some parents. I felt that was a great idea, and it was very well executed. As for some parents who may feel like, I know, but I might miss something that is very important. So I would prefer to have it in my home language. And that, I think, that probably made these families feel very welcome to be back at the school. That I thought that was very well done. Something else is when we ask about the amount of teachers and staff that speak Spanish, it is also related to what it came in a school that doesn't have that many Hispanics in their enrollment. And because of this, they also don't have enough front office people who speak Spanish or staff who speak Spanish, which made it very complicated for them to find during the back to school night and during the office parent-teacher conference, translators in person, a familiar face who will be sitting with them and helping them understand the teachers and vice versa. And instead of just a telephone and translation office. So in increasing also the amount of people who can seem familiar and to be there for the parents is, one of our goals for this year is to involve more the families. It's not just the Hispanics. In general, it has been for the last few years, but we are at the center and the foreground. We are always looking at what is happening with the group who is behind, but also if we don't make the families and the community feel welcome, they are never gonna catch up. So that's another thing, like how can we implement the bright spots and things that have been done in some school, in all the schools. Also, something to do with, I didn't go to Colombia this year because I was my kids' back to school night. But so I didn't see how that one went, but I know I've been in all the SMS ones, and there are also no Spanish speaking services during the back to school night. And I hope that there are translation for the families for the parent teacher conference. I know that they have great, the Carmen does an awesome work with the Hispanic community. But I would like to know if there is enough attention to make this family feel welcome, to make these families know everything that is happening and have the same comprehension of all the services and all the things that the other families are.
It sounds like we should probably have a parent engagement topic.
Yes.
Yeah, would that be helpful to you?
Yes.
I mean, I think that's one of our district focus areas. So we could come back and do another study session on family engagement.
With a
Yes.
focus on the Hispanic.
Of course,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a great idea.
So, let's see, we did talk a few weeks ago about the outside the schools things that we're doing to help the kids. And I think that will be like, we would like to know if what we've been doing and every time when we have been doing them is like is worth the investment and if we can do more, like, you know, for example, the summer school and all the stuff that we're gonna put in the KLS, we would like to monitor that to know, you know, if we need to put more into that
Right.
box or
Change it or just
or
assess it.
change it or improve it, or there is another box where we need to put our eggs instead of that one. I don't know, we need to learn about the data and keep an eye on that, but we are very
Okay, we're at
very-
7:05, so let's make a conscious decision about
perfect.
how much longer we want to go.
So do
I
we,
have one more quick thought, if that's okay, is it okay?
yes,
So I just wanted to say that I really appreciate having this meeting because the first couple of years I was on the board, we
Yeah.
did not have this meeting. And I feel like it's a great way to reset for the beginning of the year and just understand like really where we are. And because we have so much work on where we're going, and I know we had the LCAP at the end of last year, but it's just like really nice for me as a board member to say, oh, these are our numbers, this is what we're at, these are our focus areas. So I just really appreciate having just a
snapshot.
data review, just as a snapshot. So I know a ton of work went into it, but I really am glad we're doing it, so thank you.
okay.
So I know we're short on time, but I just, what I wanna do is I'll ask my two questions and then, can you hear? Okay, and then Mike, maybe like staff could answer them and put them in Packer, not Packer B, but in like, we can record or something.
Okay.
So one of the questions that I'd asked in Packer B to answer, and we just don't have time, but that question, right, that was for us, the what direction and policies can the board provide input on that might help direct student achievement? I'm just like interested in staff's rates of like universe staff people's like their perspective, like what direction or like what policies, what can we give you guys that would be helpful as you're moving along? So that's one of my questions. And then the other one is a new one. Jonathan, as you were talking about the data, like kind of at the beginning of the presentation, and you were talking about like you've kind of been looking at new ways and so you're finding new stuff. I would just love like an example of like one of those things, right? So just if you could maybe shoot off a quick message to Mike and then share it with us. I'm just curious, one or two of those kind of things that you've seen that have been like, oh, this is helpful or whatever.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and thank you for putting all the presentation together and again, for all the work that you guys do and well, for keeping with us that we know that we are, as they say, riding you very hard, making you accountable at every step of the way, but it's with, you know, with a full the good intentions behind that, and we know that you do have great intentions and love for passion for kids, and thank you for that. And yeah, we all understand that if we don't see the reality, we cannot fix it, and you know, that's why we keep checking many times a year, and thank you for doing this work and keeping all the data and putting it apart for us. And with that, any final thing before we move? Okay, we're a little bit behind, but I'm sure that we can catch up. It's 7:09. And we're gonna have a 5-minute break before, as usual we have it at this point, before we move forward with the rest of our agenda for tonight. And it's 7:08. We'll be back at 7:30. Let's make it 14. See you.
It was awesome.
Great, fantastic.
take 3 bites of anything,
That's like enough.
that's enough
you're
to,
right.
to satisfy the brain and that,
You're right.
that what you
Actually, my
really
doctor
want.
was talking about that.
The first 3 bites are critical, like if you love something, you take the first 3, eat the first 3, really savor them, and then just eat them up.
Just think if you can savor the first few bites, then you don't have.
You won't, you, that craving and that
Satisfaction,
you'll get it and you'll be satisfied.
Fingers crossed. Unless the dessert is like so good and you're just like, I need like 5 pills and I'm sick.
I was really looking forward to Eileen's cake.
I was too when you described it.
Ooh, and like, can't we still have it?
In January.
Another day, another day.
Eileen's here. We'll wait for it.
because like Maxwell is here already.
Yeah, right.
We just,
I drove to
Ordered
Alameda
twice.
to-
okay,
It's gonna be so
it is 7:14. Okay, so it is 7:14, and with that, we come back from recess and keep going in tonight's board meeting. And, now I wanted to do that. Now, we are moving then to item number 4, comments from the board and superintendent. And we are gonna, as usual, not start down the road, we're gonna start with Bridget today because I think Nancy's, sorry.
Still on break.
It's not back, yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I had a couple of announcements. I sent in my activities to Jesus, but basically for SCCSBA for trustees, this Friday, there's 11:30, there's the lunch at Aki in Cupertino, if you wanna do some networking. Also, the Legislative Action Committee sent out their survey, so they're asking all trustees to fill it out just from their personal perspective, because we're trying to establish the goals for this year for the legislative goals and priorities for SCCSBA. And then we're confirmed we are gonna have a Region 5 and Region 20 mixer at AEC on the 30th. Time is TBD. Also, I did go to the wellness committee and there was some pretty cool stuff happening in general. There's a ton of gardening going on, the after school programs have started kicking off. And the 4th and 5th grade disc golf group from Fairwood, Joe Gaben came and gave a talk about that, and there may be more disc golf happening at different recesses and things around the district. But also student nutrition was there, and Armando was there introducing us to one of their new supervisors or managers. And basically, he was saying that they're interested in doing more, well, they're trying to do more scratch cooking, and that they're interested in providing supplies to schools that have gardens. If anyone's interested in planting things that they would then use, they would then purchase them from the classrooms. So they're interested in working with the schools that way. And they're also saying that they're gonna there is a way for staff to set up accounts so they don't have to order from DoorDash, they can just order from the school cafeteria. So if they set up an account, there's a way for them to buy lunch again this year. And then they also mentioned that they're gonna be, once they get the staffing that they needed, they're gonna start producing rotisserie chickens at CMS and SMS, just like Costco, and then it'll go out to all the other campuses. So like there's Costco style chicken. And then we went to, the other highlight for me just was that Isabel and I went out and did a staff site visit to Bishop, where we saw an assembly and there was a ton of joy there. There was teaching, there was singing, there was school chanting. They did this whole video all about uniqueness and belonging and children revealing their superpowers, like basically what makes them unique. And this one little girl was so cute. She was like, "And it's a huge secret, don't tell anyone I can fly." She's like on this big video telling the whole school, "Don't tell anybody." Like, I thought that was pretty cute. And then the other thing that we came away with that though is that with a lot of their newcomers, especially the students who came at the end of last year, there is a need for bilingual counseling. And that they don't have any bilingual counselors there this year, that the CHAC interns are not multilingual. And so they're patching things together with the community, but that was expressed as something that would support their students from the trauma they had from the getting here. But in general, once they're here, it's a love fest, so that's good. So anyway, that's me.
Let's go back to Nancy, she's here now. Hello.
Yes, hello. I wanted to share that I've been doing a lot of reading. I'll share out with you the article that I had forwarded to Dr. Gallagher, that's from Psychology Today. I thought it was very good. I am focused in on schooling experience from a different perspective. It's my 50th high school class reunion this weekend, and I get to do a school tour. And I'm really excited about seeing my seeing my campus from how I remembered it 50 years ago and what it's like now. So that will be a very interesting site experience for me, in addition to connecting and just really reviewing about all the assets that people have and all the excitingness that can happen after we all reach adulthood. We're not in all that teenage angst and competition anymore. So I'm looking forward to making some new friends in addition with connecting with old friends. So thank you.
Thank you.
So first, I just want to share that I was able to go to one of the author visits to Jerry Craft today. And it was fun. My kids both got to see him yesterday at 2 different schools, and then I saw him today over at Columbia. And my kids had great things to say, and he really did do a great job. And just, I know, like, Rachel puts in a lot of time to like get those author visits, and it's great to like hit multiple schools. And the kids it was 6th grade day, right? The kids were excited, and anyone who wanted to sign, he stayed like after and was signing books, and it was just a fun, great event. This is just a community event that hasn't been around for a while, but it's back after COVID. It's the Firefighter Pancake Breakfast. That's always a fun event. Like when my kids were little, you get to like use the fire hose, go up the tower, go on a fire truck ride. So that's Saturday, October 14th at the big station. It's in the morning, the big one across from whatever that, not Home Depot. Lowe's, thank you. And then last thing, just to mention for board related to the school site visits, there are a couple this fall that just have one board member on it. And so Isabel and Nancy, if either of you want to fill in those spots, we'll give you guys maybe like a day or two. If you want to fill them in, great. If not, then Bridget and I will just do a whole bunch this fall and less in the spring for people to do it. But just wanted to like throw that out there for the 2 of you. If you guys want to fill in, if not, then we'll fill those up, and that's all I have.
Okay, good. Thank you for putting the new specifications also for the site visit. Well, it has been very busy couple of weeks. The big one, of course, last week was the first part of the California Latino School Board Association conference. At least we started it, and it got a little bit boycotted, so we had to postpone most of it. Anyway, there was a lot of work there, and we did finish our presentation, and we're there and we're present, but we just couldn't present it to everybody. There were a lot of interactions anyway. I was able to learn quite a few things, among them, for example, the work that has been going on in Monterrey. They have about 22% of the population that is under McKinney-Vento health, and they since the pandemic, and they haven't been able to, I mean, people just haven't been able to recover. So they have been like, one of the presentations that I think Mike was also looking forward to see was how were they able to to recover from this. And they did open a Saturday Academy. So that's been helping every kid who is behind, that's been helping with the ADA because they are in an ADA school district, but also with the attendance, so kids can catch up if they, for one reason or another, didn't make it to enough sessions. And they make it a full, very fun day. So they start with games and things, and during the day they get interventions and special instruction time. So that was like a very good case, which reminded me of something that we wanted to do last year, but we were, giving the innovation cards and thinking that we wanted, one of the ideas was like, what if you guys go on a tour of great programs that you love, go and learn and see if it's a good fit for us or not, and then, see what we can learn from everybody to do better in whatever we want to do. So I wanted to bring back the possibility that during the next semester, maybe we can do something close by and see, the programs like the one in Morgan Hill that we watched, that you couldn't make it a day, but I did with Eileen this year about the math and science, music, math and science program that had a very good fix for for closing the gap. The one about the arts program that was also closing the gap, I think it was in Santa Cruz, and the one, this one that has the Saturday Academy. So maybe we can, I don't know, or bring some that you guys think could be a good match, or things that they are doing interesting or differently where we can learn or share. We can just go and see them, and we can do some tours. Yeah, I think that would be a great way to also try to add on, and I don't know. So we talk a little bit about that, but we also work in so many things together that somehow got somewhere in the middle. So we did, within that, there were, other interactions with other of the Latino Board Association people, which were very interesting. Was the talk with Dolores Fuentes in the evening. Dolores Huerta in the evening, and it was great. She had a very to the point speech about about expulsions and the disproportionate expulsion of Latino kids in many districts, and how they've been fighting that. As we were talking today a little bit about that, and the disproportionate representation of Latino kids in other districts, and how they are working on that and bring a spotlight on that. So that was, pretty much a very intense weekend. Something else that happened, we went to the opening of the City Hall. Eileen still was 2 people in one, now she's alone again.
So she doesn't get along.
Yes, she was walking with a baby inside her, now she's not. But we were there, and I think this was one of the first year that we don't get a public teacher, one teacher from our district to be there. But I suppose, as you say, maybe it's fair. It was fair that at last a private school gets a prize for the best teacher, an award. And something else that I wanted to highlight among all of the work. I went to the Lakewood site visit and the Bishop site visit. I saw a lot of social emotional learning in the classrooms and other activities. And I know that, tonight we're going to be talking about the document with the grant that we get from YMCA, so we'll talk about it later. But inside that grant is also the help that we receive for chat services. And I know that, it's chat people that speak Spanish, there might be, or therapists, they specialize in kids that speak Spanish, might be some sort of unicorns that are not easy to find. But still, it will be maybe good to see if we can have more, widen our radar to see if we can find more support for families and kids, the kids who need it and the referral of the families. But it's good that if we don't have them in-house, we can refer somebody from the community service or somewhere else that will take care of the kids and the kids' well-being so they can learn and we can improve. With that, thank you and thank you for coming with us, Mike and she left already, and Christina to Southern California.
So just real quickly, I also want to thank our district librarian, Rachel Bross, for putting together Author Week. And I got 2 of the books, and I'm not going to share them because they're autographed and signed for me, but actually I'll put them in my office, so maybe I will share them a little bit. But I think it's fantastic, and it's really an effort not only to encourage writing and to encourage authorship, I suppose, but also it's part of our effort to help students see themselves in the literature that they're reading, and to get them excited about literature. And I think we accomplished that. So I thank Rachel, and she is so feels so supported. So certainly from the Board of Education too. I'm sure she passes along that. Then the other thing I wanted to say is, should you approve the contract today for Performance Fact to work with our developing our strategic plan, which really will be the major focus of our work this year. They are available to come next board meeting during the study session and to answer your questions and to talk about that. So I'm very excited that they're able to do that. And so what that's going to mean is we will move our study session on data focused on Hispanic and Latino students and student voice to the following board meeting. So I think it's important to get started on the strategic plan because there's a lot of work to do on that. And I told them that I really want them to hear from you the involvement that you want to have in their process. And they also have they do this all the time, of involving boards. And I said, you may work with boards that just want to hear about it at the end and hear about it hear about it at the beginning and hear about it at the end. That's not our board. They want to be more involved and know about it as we're going through. And so we'll be happy to answer those questions next board meeting. So that's exciting.
Perfect. Thank you. And with that, we move to item 5 of our agenda. And that's comments from the Sanibel Education Association. If there is any member from that association, please raise your electronic hand, as I don't see anyone here. Okay, then not seeing any, then we move for comments from the California School Employees Association. If there is any member who wants to speak, tell us anything. Okay, thank you. And now we go to comments from the public. Item number 7, this portion of the agenda provides an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the government board on any item of interest to the public. However, provision of the Brown Act would preclude any action being taken in an item that is not appearing on the posted agenda. So if there is any comment, please well, I see a card, but it's not on this item. If there is any comment with item number 7, please raise your hand. Oh, you have 1-7?
It's later.
You have 1-8 and 10.
Or 8 and 10.
No, I was gonna talk about public.
Oh, engineer?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And
Just come on up.
yeah.
And fill it out later.
We'll do this 7. Okay, so with that, we have in person an Arti Ramaswamy. Please go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Sure.
And the timer is going to be there.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure whether I was going till then. So I'm still talking on the topic of technology in the classroom. So my older son, he is a junior at Homestead, went to Cherry Chase, SMS, and now at Homestead. My younger one is a 6th grader at SMS. So I've seen the evolution of technology in the district for the last 10, 11 years. And I'm a software engineer by profession, so I know how the business side of all the apps used in the classroom. So it's great that every kid has a device and variety of learning tools to allow for personalized learning. But it's still unclear to me as a parent, and as I see all these apps that my kid brings home, what due diligence has been done regularly to ensure the materials are sufficient and appropriate for the age group being used. So I appreciate the response given by Jeremy and Jonathan, but I do think the education technology for learning usage and acquisition is fragmented. Meaning to say a teacher at Ellis using a tool is great and it works in that particular classroom, it might not be the best tool for across the demographics of the district. And the due diligence that needs to be done has to be technology appropriate. The teacher knows it serves the purpose of providing education, but she does not know what the business side of the tool. I don't think that type of diligence is done because you guys are educators. You don't understand the technology side of things. You may not, I don't know for sure, but some of the app that my kids use falls in the category of addiction apps, which I would not let my kid use. So there are a few examples I would like to say. For example, the success metrics that the teacher uses might be different from what the business sees. And I think someone needs to be there to ensure that technology used in the classroom is appropriate for the kids that it is serving. So for example, some of the math tech tools, as I said, it falls in the category of addictive apps and babysitting tools. Prodigy Math is one such one. A middle schooler in 6th grade does 1st grade math with Prodigy Math. And no teacher doesn't know he's doing that math. He does it. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Prodigy Math. It works it's like a Minecraft game where the kid acquires bonuses and all of that, builds a house and all that. In the 6th grade classroom, once he's done with the schoolwork, he can do whatever he wants and he works on Prodigy Math. He's not working on anything related to his learning. He's working on 1st grade math because all he's doing is building houses, acquiring bonuses, and the whole bunch of assets to build his empire, I think, in Prodigy. One other app is Seesaw, which is used extensively since COVID. Both, if you look at all the reviews online, these should not be in the hands of kids in the age group that the district is. Not only our district, there are a variety of districts using these apps. So my question to everyone here is there a district plan for ed tech for the learning purpose, not the technologies and the network switches and all of that Wi-Fi devices? Ed tech learning, I think I'm running out of time. Can I continue? Development.
When the time's up, you have to stop.
Okay. So I have a whole bunch. Okay. So
if you would like to share your comments, give them to Jesus and he'll make sure that they get to the board.
Okay.
Thank you.
So what I wanted to get to is I would be happy to help work with the district to come up with a plan because right now the tools being used are not appropriate.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you again. Yes, it's too awesome. Yes, to us. Is there any person on the line? Okay, thank you. With that, we are moving to item 8, presentations. And our first one will be, the only one tonight, 8A, will be staffing and hiring update. And for that, we have Jeremy Nishikara and Mary Beth Allman. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. It's my pleasure, along with Mary Beth Allman, our Director of Human Resources, to present staffing and hiring update. This is a new kind of presentation during this part of the year. So I appreciate you giving this time. And I just kind of wanted to connect it to, this is like the first in our upcoming series of presentations, with the next one being the demographers report, which is the enrollment. Then we open registration and open enrollment, and then we enter the hiring season in the spring. So that's kind of the context of what we're looking at here today. We were going to introduce each other, but I was overruled. Guess by who?
I was hoping for some jokes or something.
Thank you. Well, that was the first one there. All right. Excellent. Well, we're off to a great start. So we'd like to just start the presentation referencing our equity statement and mission so that we can see that this is what guides our work in the Human Resources Department and how we tie back into the equity statement and the district mission. And then also want to just touch really quick on the fact that referencing the human resources intersections with the LCAP. And you'll be receiving the annual updates in the spring along with from this year's work during the 23-24 year, but just wanted to remind you that we fall into this goal area with these specific actions regarding staffing. And then wanted to just spend a quick referencing about some of our HR metrics that we talk about. So again, if you are aware of this, I apologize, but the way we view our staff and our human resources folks is by individuals and full-time equivalent. So individuals, think of them as people or folks with belly buttons. So we have 324 staff members in our classified service, but they represent 284.275 full-time equivalent, which is, think of that as an 8-hour shift. So our certificated staff has 375 individuals filling 369 full-time positions, 72 management, 72 FTE, and then the non-CSCA classified staff is a fancy name for our noon duties because they are unrepresented by CSCA, but they're considered classified staff. So we have 41 dedicated individuals filling the equivalent of 7.6875 8-hour positions. That's because for the most part, they work 1 hour or 1.5 hours a day.
All right, so our theory of action, often you hear about HRs recruit and then retain, and we like to see it less linear and more circular. The more focus we put on the retention of teachers, one, the less we have to recruit, but when we do recruit, we've got a bunch of people talking about how great our district is, and it makes recruitment a lot easier. So that's our theory of action.
And so focusing on the retention efforts first, I just wanted to touch on our competitive total compensation. So I am pleased to say that our current agreement, which spans last year, this current year, and next year, is serving us well. But we need to always be conscious because districts around us are now kind of catching up. I'm doing air quotes, Nancy, that I don't know if you can see, but they're catching up because districts around us are now reaching agreements for last year, this year, and next. So we are kind of constantly monitoring that to make sure our compensation, both for classified and certificated, remain competitive. And in fact, we touch on this both with our conversations with CSCA and SCA. And then on the right here, there's a program called the Classified Schools Employee Summer Assistance Program. This is a California Department of Education funded program for 10 and 11-month classified employees. We are in our second year of this program. And what this is basically is employees can elect, if they meet certain criteria, one of which is being a 10 and 11-month employee, they can choose a certain amount of up to 10% of their earnings and withhold it. The state will match that amount in order to kind of bridge their summer service since they're only working 10 and 11 months. So that's in a nutshell what that program is. We are again in our second year. I want to thank CSCA for bringing this to our attention. We are about half of the districts in Santa Clara County are implementing this program, so I'm pleased to be able to bring this. So last year was our first year where we had 83 of our classified members, which is roughly 33%, elect to participate in this program, which yielded an additional $144,827 to these 83 participants from the state. So it's a great program. Very little out of pocket from us. I'm looking at Lori a little bit. It does fall, though, a lot of work on HR to manage the enrollment of the process, but also payroll. So a special shout out to Connie and payroll because it does fall to her because, again, they have to do the withholding and then the payment out. But we are happy to bring that again in our second year, and I'm pleased to report that our participation is increasing. This year we have 84 people. Oops, I went ahead one.
All right, you're familiar with some of these programs, these ongoing employee support, so we just want to give them a little shout out. One is our ongoing partnership with Acknowledge Alliance with resiliency coaches, where they provide individual supports at sites, and also they're just kicking off their resiliency groups. And this year we are adding our classified staff as participants in that, and also have the opportunity for BIPOC staff to have their own group. To provide support there. So those are two new additions to that this year. Employee assistance program, that's something where our teachers or all staff are afforded counseling sessions for free through the employee assistance program. So they're able to dial in and find a counselor that matches whatever their need is. And so we're pleased to offer that as well.
And then of course our instructional coaching supports, which you've heard about with our with teaching and learning's presentation, just a lot of focus on coaching, not just for our staff, but also for us as leaders to make sure that we can best support our staff.
Okay, so you heard me repeat this phrase, and I'm going to keep saying it until it sticks at our welcome back event, which is I can't even say it, professionalizing the profession. So what this really means is that we are committed as a public education entity to ensure that public education jobs remain a viable career option. This is kind of a personal passion of mine, given the fact that I am a child of two public school educators. My parents, my father was a school psychologist in the mighty San Jose Unified School District, and then my mom was a teacher in the Oak Grove School District. So I come from those roots. So I am a firm believer in public service. So I'm committed to making sure that these are viable career opportunities. So what that means is we're trying to configure our classifications and jobs for upwards mobility. So think about if you can become a teacher, you're a teacher, then you can become a coach, then maybe an assistant principal, director. You know, like there's a natural pathway. We're trying to mirror that on the classified side as well. So I wanted to give Lori a shout out. So the food service, like we were, Bridget, you were just talking about with what's coming, there's kind of has a nice little pyramid. Food pyramid, I'm not supposed to say that, but I just did, Mike, so I apologize. But basically there's a series of food service workers 1, then a few less FS2s, a couple of cook managers, there's our new supervisor of child nutrition, et cetera. So you can see how then there's kind of this nice articulation and the potential for growth and working your way up. So we're trying to work and make sure that there are definitely opportunities for upward mobility. One thing that we're very proud of is our Pathway to Teaching program. This is an opportunity for our classified employees to receive grants to procure their teaching credential. And we have our very first successful grantee working our way through our program. I don't know, Mary Beth, you want to just give a quick highlight about that and who that is?
Yeah, so Jen Maylard, who worked in the office at Cherry Chase, is now student teaching at Fairwood Elementary.
And with the rules, we get first dibs. So upon successful completion of her program, because of the grants, we get to offer her a position. So we're looking forward to that. And again, a special thank you to CSCA, because Mike actually negotiated that prior as his role of deputy superintendent, but it just took us a while to get the right individuals to be able to take advantage. We are also creating classified lead, and I just mentioned already the classified management positions. That is an opportunity to have employees show opportunities for growth and leadership, and then a bridge into management to across all of our classified departments. So we're working on that as well. And then we're trying to make sure that we're updating previously outdated accurate job descriptions, which just also means that the job essential duties outlined in the job descriptions meet the current job requirements that we're doing, which is a great opportunity to make sure that we're all on the same page. And then lastly, the third bullet is various employment options whenever possible. We were playing the innovation card a lot during pandemic. This is where we created the concept of our permanent floaters, both certificated and classified. Think about it when we had to spin up quickly the independent study teachers. We're just trying to offer additional types of positions whenever possible for our employees as well.
So you heard from the earlier study session, a big focus on feedback, providing feedback to staff with our new teacher project walkthroughs and various tools for that. So we want teachers and other staff to see that evaluation is part of the larger umbrella of feedback and not a separate process that's something that you have to check off the list that you get nervous for, maybe for a day, and then forget about it for the rest of the time. And so again, this is around creating a culture of feedback and really working with teaching and learning and make this a seamless process in terms of the daily walkthroughs that an administrator might do, the new teacher project walkthroughs that administrators are doing collaboratively, and then the actual evaluation process, and really viewing it all as formative feedback for the teachers to improve practice and focus on student learning. So we're just providing some professional development around that, whether it's walking through a scenario at one of our ILT meetings, or providing more in-depth instruction around evaluations and how to use it as an effective tool for feedback to some of our newer managers. The next bullet, renewed focus on retaining special education staff. Of course, that's always been a focus, but just trying to find different pathways. So we've partnered with San Jose State University in their residency program, where we now have residents placed in our classrooms. Residence is like student teaching. There's a few differences, but it's like student teaching. This is part of a grant, and the grant provides some tuition reimbursement and supplies and book reimbursement so we can attract more people to this program. And then they are guaranteed employees for us for the following 4 years. So this is creating a pathway. And then in terms of the retention piece, also just really having targeted coaching and supports from our special ed instructional coaches, along with one of our induction mentors who's focused primarily on special education. So just making sure that there's kind of a wraparound support for our special education teachers, both new and veteran, so that we can retain the great teachers that we have.
And the last part about professionalizing profession, and I apologize, I'm going to try to say this eloquently. We're utilizing opportunities, especially on the classified side, to reconfigure less than 6-hour positions into 6 and 8-hour positions. The issue is that some employees, understandably, are trying to cobble together 6 and 8-hour positions for benefits and salary. But on the sometimes when they combine positions, it becomes challenging to offer professional development because they're in maybe two different particular parts of classified service. Also, it's just sometimes hard that, okay, I'm working this part of the day in the front office, and then I have to switch my brain. I'm going to go be a para in this, in the second half of the day. And then it also makes it very difficult to actually fill these positions should the individual choose to leave or retire. And so we're trying to just kind of put these packages or these positions together, whole positions, as far as trying to make, again, public education classified service a bona fide career. There's just a brief list here of what we've been doing. We're working on this on a case-by-case basis. It requires a lot of communication with our CSCA bargaining unit, but it's great. You approved some of these last week, so you'll see more again in the right positions. But we're very excited that it creates the opportunity to retain the employee, but then also a viable recruitment when there's an 8-hour position, hypothetically for our bilingual para or the 5 8-hour behavior technician positions as they go forward. Plus, the bonus with the 8-hour positions, it does allow us to then extend beyond the school day, either before or after school.
All right, so part of our recruitment efforts is to update our job descriptions for outdated and non-inclusive language, and also just making sure that the job descriptions meet kind of how we're elevating our practice, and that's included in the job description as well. So the expectations are really clear for our employees. We've revamped our recruitment materials to make sure our focus on equity and all of the great things that are happening in the district are put forth. So the people that come to us know what we're about and what our expectations are. We've updated our hiring process and our interview questions to reflect those pieces as well. Again, to make sure you can communicate a lot in the questions you're asking. As well as learning a lot from the employees, the potential prospective employees, whether or not this is something that that they're bought into as well, or the culture of our district. We're streamlining our onboarding process, kind of trying to take away any unnecessary barriers that might prevent qualified folks from applying. And then maximizing recruitment fair opportunities. So we always participate in the certificated hiring fair at the county, and we're one of the few districts that we have so many principals and assistant principals and staff there that we're able to talk to every single person that comes to our table, which is a great recruitment tool. And then we actually held a classified hiring fair here. We wanted to maximize our pull from our neighborhood, but we advertised widely. So advertised widely, and it ended up being a success. And we were able to fill our vacant para positions to start the year. I mean, they weren't sometimes able to start right at the beginning of the year, but we were able to fill those positions as well as have some leads for vacancies that we have right now. I was just going through my cards that I had from the fair to see who we could tap to interview. So here's that was just a picture of what our hiring fair looked like here in this very room. All right, and then about Project Hoagie, which is our our certificated sub floaters is what it started with last year. We've actually added some other floaters to the mix, again, to provide support for positions that are high need positions, so that when folks are out, Other people aren't having to, the administrative staff aren't having to cover, or front office staff isn't having to cover. So we currently have 9 certificated floaters. We are in the process of hiring 2 special education para floaters. We have a school administrative assistant floater and then a health assistant floater. And again, the goal there is to make sure we have 0 unfilled vacancies, which as of September 27th, we haven't checked since then, it might be until today. But as of September 27th, we had 0 unfilled certificated vacancies, meaning that we weren't having to combine classes, put coaches and teachers into the classrooms instead of them being able to go out and observe and give feedback on instructional practice. So we're continuing to expand this program, and it's been really successful.
Hopefully we didn't just jinx that right now, so there we go. Again, always want to highlight our partnership with our employer associations and our management association. Again, we meet bi-weekly still with CSCA and SCA, and so this is just a small, tonight's topic is a small part of what we end up talking about, so it's fantastic. And we are now entering into our 23-24 hiring season.
Yeah, so just a little snapshot of just kind of this most recent hiring season, although classified is hired year round. We hired 39 certificated staff, 29 classified staff, and 3 management staff within a fairly short period of time.
And as you can see from the bottom of the slide, we are still hiring. We have a few vacancies, even in food service, I believe. So if you're watching at home, please feel free to go to www.scSD.org. All right, and then wrapping up in our next steps, wanted to just highlight the work of human resources that we were continuing to deploy a new integrated frontline talent management application system suite of products. So right now we do have digital applications that are performing certain HR functions, but we've taken, and what actually, it served us very well during the pandemic when we shut down. We were able to rely on these systems to continue our human resources processes, including the evaluation cycle, hiring, especially when we were shut down. It gave us a system, and it was a hub for to allow us to continue to our basic functions. However, we wanted to take a few of those disparate systems now and put them all into one application. So that is called Frontline. And I just want to run through this quickly. And I know there was a couple of questions about just what they're doing, especially the evaluation and the professional growth model. So I'll spend the most of my time on that. But we've deployed successfully at the beginning of this year the absence management module, which allows all employees now in one system to be able to report their absences. Please do not ask us how that was done prior, because it was done about 4 or 5 different ways. Timekeepers at our school sites were asking for one system for both certificated, classified, and management to be able to call into. It gives us just general more visibility overall, and it's a more effective tool. It is new, so we're kind of rolling out that process, but I just want to give actually all school sites, all employees, huge kudos for bearing with us with this new application that we do to report absences. Frontline Central is a back-end thing that kind of ties all of these modules together. We are just starting our recruit and hire module. Right now we use Talent Ed, but we are now going to cut over to the Frontline Recruit and Hire because now we want everything to be integrated. The January timeline is going to allow us to then start the 24-25 hiring season, which begins in January timeframe in the new system. So that's our goal. Similarly with the evaluation module, and the professional growth module, those are planned to come last. The reason for that is it's impossible to change midstream with our current evaluation process, because teachers are holding their goal setting meetings now. They're going to have their observations in the current tool. So we'll cut that over at the end of the year mark in order for the next school year. The thing we're most excited about is the professional growth model, and one of the features of Frontline that we wanted to pick is it has, in addition to the evaluation component, which then basically mirrors our contract language, and it's a digital representation of that. So I want to thank CSCA and SCA as well for working with us, because again, it might look different, but the intent and the forms are the content of the forms are the same. But in addition to that, the professional growth module will allow us to better track our professional development. So we're excited to, once we start to deploy this, to partner with teaching and learning, especially on just how we can then utilize this system to track everything from our mandated reporting options to other offerings across the board, all in one central place. So again, it's held together by Frontline Central. And the theory is, or the application will say an employee will then apply and be hired through Recruit and Hire. They're put into Central, then they're onboarded with digital forms all in one place. then they would be fed into the evaluation module and then eventually professional growth. And since the systems are all tied together, the employee can have visibility into their digital employee file, their professional development that they've taken, if we can get that into the system as well as previous evaluation. So that's the dream. And I think that brings us to the end. So we're happy to entertain any questions. Thank you for your attention tonight. And Michelle, I apologize. I was kind of like, I watch your face as my speed would increase. You start to go like this. So that makes me want to slow down.
Well, thank you for that. And with that, if there is, we're gonna start with comments from the public. We do have one comment person, and if there is any comment from the public on this particular item 8A, please raise your electronic hand. And we do have one person here, again, Arti, nothing online? Nothing online. Okay. Arti Rasmuswani, who wants to speak on this particular item 8A. You have 3 minutes.
And the time will be on there so you can kind of watch.
Yes.
Oh, I missed it last time, yeah. I should speak, no, I don't have too much to, I'm just making use of my time today, so since I made the trip. Yeah, the only question I had is, I saw your LCAP goal, you're going to hire your staff representative of the demographics of the district. I've been here 10 years, I've not seen that happen. I mean, I think we're 30-40% Asian Indian. I've had one Indian teacher all through, so I don't know what the plans are, one. And the second question I had is, I saw you listing the variety of ways you're going to hire certified classified staff. Do you guys sponsor visas? Have you gone out? I wasn't sure, I was looking at the website, maybe it's not very clear whether you're open to all immigrant status.
Thank you. Jeremy?
So those are 2 great questions. I'll start with actually the second one regarding sponsoring individuals. We do that from time to time. We do have an employee it has to be hard to fill positions because I can't go into too much in the immigration side of things, but we do sponsor a couple of employees with H-1B visas. And for employment. But again, it has to be hard to fill positions or some criteria, and especially the past couple of years, the application process has kind of gone up and down. So we do utilize that as an appropriate tool periodically on a case-by-case basis. And then the question about our goal about having our staff reflect our community is kind of an ongoing goal, because again, yes, our certificated teaching force, I want to say, is it majority Caucasian women at the moment. It takes time then for us to be able to use attrition and retirements in order to kind of shift that practice, but we are doing that now, given at least the past 3 years that Mary Beth and I have been in this position and the new equity statement. We're really paying attention to hiring whenever that opportunity comes up to then take every vacancy as an opportunity to try to move toward that goal. And I wanted to make it clear that it is our intention that the goal is to have our staff mirror the demographics of our students and families, not necessarily Sunnyvale as a whole. So that's maybe, we should maybe make that a little clearer. But we do take that as an opportunity to, but we need vacancies in order to fill that piece. But we are doing that with eyes wide open.
So with that, we open comments from the board and questions. Anyone wants to start? Sure.
I thought it was in the slides, and maybe I was trying to find just now, related to I appreciate that question because I think it's one that we've talked about. I swear sometime this week I saw stats that broke down like our percentages of certificated and classified, but where did I see that? Was it Packer View? That's what I was just trying to scan through. Okay. So I'm just really grateful that was broken down. Like that was just really great to like see it. And I think it connects to like, we kind of knew that was probably there, but we haven't actually seen the numbers. And I think, right, like we own it, right? Like this is where we're at. Like they're all great people, but we do want to be more diverse. And so I just really appreciated seeing the numbers. I think kind of that's like, I guess the baseline, right? It shows us this is where we're at and where we need to go. So I was grateful to see those numbers. Thanks.
Reed?
Yeah, so I had a question about in the Packer review, it said you've been tracking number of new hires who speak Spanish and that you're at like 33% of the new hires are speaking Spanish, but have you asked the rest of the staff, the rest of the teaching staff, whether or not they speak Spanish or some Spanish or something like that? Is that, even if it was, you know, it's not part of their onboarding thing, like, do you have a sense of that?
I think that's something we definitely want to try to ask as we gather data. Want to make sure we do it in an appropriate way. So we would definitely partner with both associations when we want to try to do that. But I think that's the next piece that we want to do to try to just identify language assets in our district. So we will accomplish that.
Sure,
Shortly.
okay. Yeah, and my other question was about a little bit more about the JPA, and I'm guessing we're gonna get an update sometime about what's, you know, going on recently. But I know that some neighboring districts are publicizing groundbreakings of staff, you know, teacher and staff housing. There have been a lot of discussions about daycare, and, you know, I saw Mary Beth Allman at one of the county symposiums on different kinds of pathways to support teacher and staff housing, like different kinds of loan structures, ADUs, groundbreaking, buying into rental properties, stuff like that. So I'm just wondering what HR is thinking around that, or is that kind of all in the realm of the JPA now, or?
I think it's both. Yeah, the JPA is the West Side Education Alliance. Just for the record, it's an entity formed by Cupertino Union School District, Sunnyvale School District, and the Fremont Union High School District. We each have two representatives on that board to try to identify opportunities. So that being said, it's been a little slow going in the sense of identifying ready projects. We was formed with some momentum behind it, and then it kind of stalled out a little bit. We have had a couple of conversations with housing specific. I think we then need to also look individually, because it is one thing to partner, but the project has to be correct to meet the needs of all three. So I think we're always trying to kind of take a look at both, and then not to say that one can't inform the other. And so, yeah, I think they kind of work in tandem. I've been talking with Dr. Gallagher about the best way to bring an update to all three boards of that part of the JPA. But we are definitely keeping tabs and ear to the ground with our conversations about the needs of our Sunnyvale specific employees. And we are, yeah, just trying to take a look at what project we would get bang for the buck that would really make a difference for retention for employees. So.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And about a couple of months ago, you come with me to that meeting with the supervisors, Joe's meeting, and Anatoly. We all agree, and it was a very nice meeting, that they were talking about opening some ground for our teachers to our school district. But they did open one in Mountain View, and we haven't heard any movement in, you know, housing for our teachers. I don't know if you guys are more up to date. I know that's part of her question, but from part of the county?
Yeah, so no, we haven't heard anything. So that's another opportunity for the JPA, because Supervisor Simidian did contact each individual district, which was a little weird. So we were trying to kind of circle back, but no, we have not heard anything as well. So definitely, maybe this is an opportunity for us to be able to follow up with the staff. So, yeah.
Or Anatoly is our guy now.
Yeah.
But Simidian was the one developing projects.
Yeah, I think, yeah, Simidian was in the meeting, and then there was a staffer from Anatoly's office. So, but I don't know, the senator, Supervisor Simidian was taking the lead. So maybe
like
we can ping his office.
Yeah, but the staff from Anatoly was in that meeting too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to, that would be a great project to then funnel through the JPA, because again, that does benefit the three districts, so. Okay.
Also, last year when we lost our social service person in SMS that spoke Spanish, we couldn't find a Spanish speaking one, we found another social service employee. Do we have more social services that help the families in their own language, district-wise?
That might be a good one, Natasha.
Yeah.
Social workers.
Social workers.
There's a bilingual social worker at SMS.
Yeah, at both, three campuses, yes.
3 campuses.
Mhm.
Okay. And what about the number of speaking Spanish front office in every school? Because I know that some schools don't have. How are we
Yeah, so
doing
we negotiated last year as a honoring, and it is, I guess, a recruitment option, is that we have for classified staff, we have the bilingual stipend, where if they're utilized in a non-classification or a classification that doesn't require, we have 3 classifications that do require Spanish. But yeah, each front office or each school site and department can, we have resources enough for 3 additional language speakers for a language that fits the needs of that department or school. And so we have those deployed across the district, and we're constantly reminding everyone to take advantage of that.
So kind of like a stipend idea.
Yeah, it's a bilingual stipend for classified staff members to utilize their language at a regular basis. That's not included in their daily job.
Not officially a part of their contract.
That is correct. So bilingual paras. Yeah, bilingual paras, outreach assistants, and the front district office assistant, they all have language built into and they're already paid at a higher level. Yeah. Stipend is a additional on top if we're utilizing their language on a regular basis at the school sites. And it doesn't have to be, that one doesn't have to be Spanish.
Yeah, but it's a language that is helpful at that.
That is correct.
And that's just classified or do we have something down for the certified?
We have we negotiated the B-clad stipend for certificated staff for those members working in the HUPOS program.
Okay, just that one,
Correct.
not if they're using it to talk to families.
Correct.
Okay. Good. Any more questions on these items, comments, Nancy? Okay. Then we move to the next item, saying thank you very much for putting this together and for all the work.
Thank you.
And to keep up with our constant questions. Requirements. Now we go to review and discussion, and I think this is where we switch from the 9C, we put it as an A. So we're gonna start with 9A now, review and discuss the survey of Sunnyvale School District likely voters conducted in September 2023. And thank you for that. Yeah, well, you are appointed here, but we do have a guest. Start with Dr. Michael Gallagher, our superintendent.
Yeah, so I'm very excited I'm not gonna present the survey results, but to be considering a bond and or parcel tax election, neither March and or November of this coming year. And so if you can just kind of go through the results of that, we have a nice slide presentation. And then what we are looking for from the board is, this isn't an action item, but a general direction on how we should proceed. Because if we're going to proceed in March of 2024, there are a bunch of deadlines we need to start hitting right away. So with that.
Thank you so much. Nice to be here. I'm Jessica Polsky-Sanchez with EMC Research and here to present the results of the recent survey of voters in the Sunnyvale School District. And as mentioned, this survey was done to understand the voter opinion around a potential bond measure and also a potential parcel tax renewal measure, and also to understand just general voter sentiment about the schools here in Sunnyvale. So a quick note about the methodology. So we did a survey of likely voters, likely 2024 voters here in the district. In order to reach a representative sample, we use mixed mode methodology. So that means we incorporate not only live interviews over the phone on landlines and cell phones, but also online interviews that come in by email and text invitation. So we did conduct the interviews between September 5th and 11th. The overall margin of error for a sample size of 400 is plus or minus 4.9 percentage points. So that's for the overall results. And we'll also look at some subsets, some subgroups of respondents, and the margin of error is higher when we're looking at smaller subsets within the overall sample. We did allow and provide interviewing in multiple languages, English, Spanish, and Chinese languages. And these were trained professional interviewers. So I'll go through a few key findings and then show you some detailed results. We do see that Sunnyvale School District voters value the local public schools, and they give the district positive ratings on performance and quality of education. We see that most voters believe that maintaining the quality of schools is a priority, even if it means raising taxes. When it comes to a potential bond measure, we see support today above the 55% threshold for passage among both likely November and likely March 2024 voters. And we also see when it comes to a potential renewal of the district's parcel tax, we see support just above the 2/3 required for passage. Looking at voter priorities, we do see that fixing leaky roofs, improving accessibility, expanding and upgrading classrooms, labs, and technology access, and a variety of other bond projects to ensure that students are learning in a safe, healthy learning environment are priorities to most voters here. So starting off with a general question that we like to use at the beginning of the survey to gauge overall sentiment from voters around how things are going generally. So this is not about the schools or the quality of education at all. It is simply, do you feel that things in your area are generally going in the right direction? Or do you feel things have gotten pretty seriously off on the wrong track? So you can see here just over half, 54% say things are going in the right direction, 39% things are off on the wrong track. And we ask this question in surveys across the state and across the Bay Area. I will say it's a little bit unique these days to see a majority feel like kind of good about the way things are going. So we can feel good about that. So a few ratings. We asked voters on a scale from excellent, good, only fair, or poor, how would you rate the overall job the Sunnyvale School District is doing, the quality of education, the quality of school buildings and grounds, the safety and security of school buildings and grounds, and the management of district monies. So what you can see here, the excellent portion in dark blue, the good portion in light blue. Overall, we do see really positive ratings on these items, on these core responsibilities of the district, with about 2/3 or above 2/3 giving good or excellent ratings on all of these, except for the management of district monies, where we see more positive than negative ratings. And this is an item where we tend to see a lot more negative sentiment from voters in most of the districts where we do surveys. So this isn't uncommon at all. So this question asks whether voters see a great need for additional funding, some need, a little need, or no real need for additional funding. And so you can see the proportion that say great need, 21%, 42% some need, 14% little need, and 15% no need. So when we total those, we see about 63% who see a need for additional funding for the local schools, and 29% who don't see a need for additional funding. We also asked a few questions to help us understand sentiment around taxes. So we asked, do you agree or disagree maintaining the quality of our schools should be a top priority, even if it means raising taxes? You can see here 71% at least somewhat agree with that statement. So more than 2/3 of voters kind of understand that investing in quality schools might mean raising taxes. They agree with that. I trust the Sunnyvale School District to properly manage funds. 72% at least somewhat agree with that. And then I would never vote for a tax increase no matter how it might be used. We see a majority disagree, 61% disagree with that statement. So moving on to a potential bond measure. As you can see here in the survey, to understand where would support be if the election were held today, we presented this potential 75-word ballot question to continue critical renovation and modernization of elementary and middle school facilities and classrooms, upgrade safety and security, improve access to technology, and develop school facilities for students. Shall the district measure be adopted, authorizing $214 million in bonds, raising an average of $13.2 million annually for 34 years? And we explain the rate with oversight, accountability, all funds benefiting local schools, with no funds for administrator salaries. So what you can see here overall among the sample of likely November voters, we see 63% initially say I would vote yes. Another 1% are initially undecided, but when we prompt them further, which way do you lean? They lean toward yes. And then with rounding, that totals 65% initial support, 33% initially inclined to vote no. And then we also wanted to look at the subset here of voters who are those we would consider likely March 2024 voters. And so with that subset on the right-hand side, we're at 62% initial support plus 1% lean for a total of 63% who would support this measure today. We also took a look at support and opposition by demographic subgroups. So a lot of data on this slide that I won't go over. So I'm sure you're seeing this. I won't go over in too much detail, but wanted to show you that support fluctuates a little bit depending on the demographic subgroup. So you can see younger voters a little bit more inclined to say they would support it than older voters. Not much difference between homeowners and renters. We don't see a difference between those who identify themselves in the poll as parents of students currently attending the schools and those who don't identify themselves as parents of current students. We do see a difference by party registration and a little bit of a difference by vote propensity there on the bottom of the slide, with less frequent voters being a little bit more supportive than more frequent voters. So this next slide shows us what we learned from voters when we asked about some of the outcomes or potential components of a bond measure. So we asked about each of these items on a scale from 1 to 7, where 1 is not at all important and 7 is extremely important. How would you rate each one? And so you can see they were presented in randomized order, but we're showing you the results in order of the highest portion who say that this is important. That's the 5s, 6s, and 7s totaled. But we also take a close look at what we call intensity, so the portion who are rating each of these as a 7 on that 1 to 7 scale. And then just for context, the items that are bolded are some of the projects that we listed in the ballot question that we tested in the survey. So rising to the top in terms of overall priorities, fixing or replacing leaky roofs and windows, followed by improving accessibility for students with disabilities, expanding and updating science labs and technology and math classrooms, updating classrooms, labs, and facilities to meet current educational standards, improving access to technology. You could read all of these on the list. These are all priorities overall to local voters. And we see higher intensity on some items like fixing or replacing leaky roofs and windows and expanding counseling facilities to support the mental health of students. So here is a continuation of that list of projects that we tested. So you can see the declining totals as you go down the list, but still majorities consider all of these at least somewhat important. You can see a little bit of a drop when it comes to parking, enhancing parking at drop-off, acquiring and developing a new school to accommodate growth in North Sunnyvale, and then upgrading multi-purpose rooms and gymnasiums. All priorities to a majority, however. So we also presented some additional information. So this information kind of highlights the benefits, the reason for a bond measure, and some of the features of a bond measure. So we wanted to see after each of these, how convincing is this as a reason to support the bond measure? So we used another 1 to 7 scale, and on this slide, again, just showing you the 7s, 6s, and 5s. And just a quick summary, what's interesting, if you look at the data on this slide, is that there's not a lot of differentiation between some of these kind of top tier messages. All of them are pretty convincing overall as reasons to support a bond measure. So that first one, highlighting how the measure will ensure classrooms, labs, and facilities are updated to meet today's educational standards. The second one, allowing for essential repairs. The third one, ensuring that all students have access to safe, well-equipped classrooms and facilities, regardless of which school they attend. And then the fourth one there, highlighting upgrades to Sunnyvale Middle School. So the remainder of the messages that we tested here, the one on the top does receive a high number, rating that as a 7. That's the one that highlights the accountability features of a bond measure. So the measure will include citizens' oversight, annual audits, public reports, ensuring the money is used efficiently and effectively, always an important concept to explain about any measure. So after all of this information was presented to voters over the course of the survey, we said, given what you've heard, Now, how would you vote if the election were held today? So we wanted to see if the additional information would impact their support. So you can see again on the left-hand side, the overall sample of likely November voters, and then the subset of likely March voters on the right-hand side. We do see a bit of an increase in support with both, going from 65% total yes to 69% among likely November voters, and from 63% yes to 67% yes among likely March voters. We also wanted to present what you might hear from an opponent of the bond measure to see how this opposition information or argument might impact support for a measure. So we kind of presented what you would hear from an opponent, that the bond measure, now is not the time to ask for more money. There's a growing cost of living, a bad economy. We can't afford to increase taxes right now. This is the kind of thing we might hear from opponents of a measure like this. And we do see that it impacts voters' support for the measure, because we say, well, now that you've heard this, how would you vote? And you can see overall, we go from 69% to 59% with that short statement from an opponent among the sample overall, and then from 67% to 58% among those who are likely March voters. So we do see a little bit of vulnerability or softness in support. Okay, so moving on to a potential parcel tax measure, which we asked about towards the end of the survey. So we asked on another topic, there might be another measure on the ballot that reads as follows: to renew annual funding for local elementary and middle schools without raising tax rates, support academic programs including math, English, science, and technology, attract and retain quality teachers, and keep class sizes small. Shall the district's measure be adopted? And this is at $59 per parcel annually for 8 years. And so you can see initially 70% support with 2% who lean yes among likely November voters. So a total of 72% support, that's above the 2/3 threshold. And then among likely March voters, almost identical results right there. A real quick breakdown by demographics. You can see there are some differences, but not as many differences as when we looked at the demographics for the bond measure. Here you see pretty widespread support across demographic subgroups for a renewal of the parcel tax. And just to finish this off, we wanted to provide a little bit of historical context. So what you see on this slide are historical results in elections here in Sunnyvale School District. Those are in the lighter blue, and then we added the poll results from this poll in the dark blue on the right-hand side. So it goes from left to right in chronological order, dating back to the 2004 Measure P bond measure here in Sunnyvale, where you saw 73% support, Measure G, 68%, Measure GG, the bond in 2018, 71%. And then we also looked at support here in the Sunnyvale School District for the high school district measures that were on the ballot in 2020 and 2022. We did see 76% support in 2020 and then 62% support in 2022. So that really is similar to the level of support that we're seeing in this poll for these two different measures. So with that, I'll wrap up with some conclusions, and I'm happy to take any questions that you have. It does appear that a bond measure for the district appears viable for the March 2024 primary. Support for a measure increases once voters receive information about the projects and the benefits. We also see that a renewal of the district's parcel tax measure receives support above the supermajority threshold in this poll. We do see, however, some vulnerability when it comes to the bond measure. So ensuring that voters understand the need for and importance of the measure seems prudent. Placing both a bond measure and a parcel tax renewal measure on the same ballot may take voters' focus away from these things. And that's why we think moving forward with planning for a bond measure in March and a possible parcel tax renewal measure in November would be a prudent course. So happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we move to public comments to start. For this is, 9 or 10?
Nine.
9A, which in our agenda is 9C. Do we have any comment on line about this? No? Okay, questions about this particular item? Yeah, okay. With that, board, questions or comments related to this item?
Yeah, I've got some other stuff. So one, I'm just a little bit curious, like on the money, right? The question kind of related to money stuff, right? Like some of it didn't seem to like add up. It was, so I think I remember right, like on slide 8, it was essentially saying like 72% of people essentially trusted us with money stuff. I mean, the question's a little bit different, but then on slide 6, I think it was like 48 or 40 something about trusting us with money, right? So that just seems like a pretty big difference. And so I'm just curious, like I know the questions were asked a little bit differently, but I'm just curious. That was interesting information that I would love to like hear your thoughts, like why that was so different.
Yeah, it is interesting that we see that, oftentimes in districts where there isn't a lot of trust, we won't see a majority agreeing, I trust the district to properly manage tax dollars. Almost across the board, we see some kind of negative ratings on the management of district monies. A lot of people nowadays especially have a general negative sentiment around government's management of money. And so they don't necessarily, what we found is that voters aren't necessarily thinking about something specific to the district when they answer that question. Now, when we ask, do you trust the district? It's a little more focused. There's something about the way we ask that question that makes people think, I think, more specifically about the district, and they're a little more trusting when we ask it that way.
If it's like a more specific question.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And then my other question, I just would like to better understand the reasoning of separating the two as opposed to having them together at the same time. Like, so if you could just go into that a little bit more of like, right, you guys are the experts, so just help me learn that better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really about the overall results. We are seeing support for a bond measure above the 55% threshold, but it's not overwhelmingly above it. We have to factor in the margin of error. And so we know that things can change between now and election day. And we also see a little bit of vulnerability when it comes to support. So it's not something that we think is just it's a foregone conclusion, and it's helping voters focus on why this measure is needed and not be potentially distracted by another measure on the same ballot is simply the strategy that we see as being prudent. Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
So in general, are renewals a little easier?
Absolutely, we definitely see that maintaining status quo, so a renewal with no increase. We see if we look at ballot measures across the county, across the state, in fact, we tend to see there is the passage rate is much higher for renewals that don't increase or for new measures. Yeah.
Nancy, you have a question?
Yes, I was wondering, can you tell me the pool of likely voters for March seemed generally more negative than the pool for those who would be more likely to vote in November. What is the advantage of voting at March versus November?
So I think it's certainly something for you to discuss, and I'm happy to weigh in terms of my own opinion. I think we do see support isn't too different between November and March here in this poll. And then I think we're just sort of thinking about opportunities to go on the ballot, both to try and pass a bond measure and also renew the partial tax measure, which expires in 2025, if I'm not mistaken. So just trying to make sure you maximize your opportunities to do both of those things.
Okay. So then the next question I would have, so it's just the next available. Do we know of any other ballot measures of any other state raising of funds are more likely to be on the March versus the November ballot of things that you know are in the pipeline?
I don't think there will be more on in March than in November, if I understood the question correctly.
Right, or if we know if of any that are potentially in the pipeline from the state perspective.
Heard something about that, but I don't remember what it was. The idea was that Governor Newsom was delaying something to November because it would have a better chance, he felt like, in November. And then locally, I know that the city is considering a bond for the library. The city, it's my understanding, can only do that in November, cannot do it in March. So that would be an advantage to us to do it in March, so we wouldn't be competing with the city.
Okay.
Assuming that they're going to do it in November, which is a long way away.
And then you talked about a lot of deadlines if we were going to choose to explore doing something in March. How aggressive is the timeline?
We would have to call for the election before December something. So and it would be, we could do it in a special election. I want to say it's like December 5th is the deadline, something around then. We could do it comfortably in our November board meeting to call for the election if that's what we wanted to do. So we'd be fine, but we would just have to be taking steps the next couple of board meetings to get there.
I guess the last question, is the voter pool in March lower than in the November election? Is that one of the advantages, that it's a lower voter pool?
Yeah, so we, in this model, we're anticipating that about 64% of likely November voters are also likely March voters, but it is a lower turnout. Primaries are historically lower turnout than general elections, and they tend to have different demographic makeups as well, a little slightly older. There can be a different kind of party registration breakdown as well.
Okay. Okay, then.
And we get more benefit from the bond one, so we would like to make sure that we get that one first.
That's my thinking, but that's something to consider. I don't know, another factor in my mind is the farther in the distance in time we go from today, there's more opportunity for conditions to change.
Who knows what's gonna happen?
Who knows what's gonna happen? And
After this week.
I don't even mean just politically, I just mean, yeah.
On the other hand, by November, we're gonna have a half building built in front of Mary and Fremont. So it's gonna be very visual. It's gonna be halfway the construction of SMS. So it's already a flag of, look, this is what we do with the bond money.
It's true.
But again, might be easier to get it in March anyway.
So what would be the next steps for this? Like, the board is discussing it today, we're not taking an action, but like, what is the outcome of like this discussion? What is the sought after outcome?
If the general direction is to proceed, again, we're not making a decision, then I think the next step would be to come back with potential language for the election, for the ballot statement. And then we would have our consultants come and review that with you. And then that would be one meeting, and then there'd be another meeting where we would approve it and place it on the ballot or call for the election.
Well, I'm interested in that. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, the only other, so an advantage of March is it's a relatively quick election, right? Like I don't anticipate that there'd be a lot of activity before the holidays. And so March 5th, I think, is the election day. And I don't know what day the ballots get sent out. It's probably something like February 5th. So that's tight, which is probably good. Like it's a lot of energy all at once. It's efficient. On the other hand, that's also the time that we'd be doing a lot of work with our strategic plan. So it would mean, maybe it's different people doing it, although I'd be doing both. But it would mean the board would be going out, would be helping me go out to PTA meetings, go out to parent groups, communicating what the bond is about. So in a tighter period of time, which is efficient, I suppose, and it would be over more quickly.
But I think once we get just like for clarification, like once we get the language and we start moving forward on the process, we wouldn't have to wait till February to talk to people. We'd be talking to people
Oh, absolutely.
right after the break. So like it would be rolling, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But it'd be about a month, maybe 6 weeks.
Like kind of intense work.
But it would be a lot of stuff happening on that show.
Yeah.
Which.
But we can do voter education about the needs prior to calling for the election.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I still want to do it.
Okay.
That's just me.
I'm just trying to think of all the factors.
Yeah. I mean, I would say as long as, right, because kind of we talked about before that there's a lot of stuff we're doing and this is going to add a little bit of space to principals, right? So as long as staff feels like it's a doable thing, right? I mean, in some ways, the advantage of having both at the same time is like, we're just putting all our energy and resources in one window, one shot, as opposed to we're doing it twice, but we also want it to pass, right? So like doing it in the way that's the most, your pass is most important, but just obviously enough people's time and energies.
Okay, I agree with you, Michelle. But I also think when we did that thermometer with Brandt and the consultants for the master plan, like we really need that money. Like we really need SMS to get done. And we really need all the maintenance to still happen because we have all those air filters to change and all that other stuff. So like that is just a huge, huge priority for us. And we need to do, I feel personally, we need to do everything we can to make it not fail.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so if it's timing, if it's whatever, like it's just a huge, it is a big push. And I feel like I actually feel perhaps optimistically, but maybe not, hopefully not unrealistically. I feel like all that strategic planning work we're doing is gonna be like socializing what the whole like purpose of having a school district is about and like building a lot of goodwill with all those same people and all those connections.
That's a good point.
I think that'll be positive. It won't be like this. It'll just be like go some direction. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate the way you said that, Bridget, because I was thinking something similar.
Arms, right?
Yeah, no, that and the part before, like this isn't like a theoretical need. This is we have a plan, we have a master plan, and the sooner we can, if we can do it realistically, with that the community wants, the sooner that we can do it and establish it, that allows us to begin planning and implementing more quickly. So I feel good about it.
Okay. Sounds like we're all on board then, yeah.
Okay.
So is there anything that would happen between now and December that would invite us going back out and repolling?
No, I can't think. I mean, you never know, but.
Okay. I
People
just
ever re-poll?
I mean, I think if you were not looking at March for a bond measure and things change dramatically, there are certainly a lot of districts that want another read or a go, no go kind of decision poll early next year, but that would be too late for a potential March measure. It's not unheard of to do a tracking survey. If something really dramatic happens and, you still had a chance to change your mind.
Okay,
So,
that makes sense.
Okay.
And maybe if the data was different than what we got, we might, and we were looking at November, we might want another read in the spring or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you for that. fun.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for that. I think we are moving in the right direction, hopefully. Now, with that, we pass to the next item. And we'll see what it was originally 9A, now is 9B, review and discuss of the board policy, district and school websites. And for that, I think we have Aliyah. Would you, yeah, that's what we have there. Aliyah Wilson or our communication coordinator.
Good evening, board and community. This is an update based on new law requirements on what is required to be posted to our websites. It was mostly one new thing about employee conduct. So working with HR on the appropriate place and where to put it. But it's just for your review tonight to approve.
Okay. Thank you. Any comments or questions? Okay, do we have any public comments related to this item, which is I closed that window again. 9A in our printed one, but 9B in the actual. Review and discuss board policy on district and school websites. Please raise your hand now. Electronic hand or personal. Okay, with that, we can move to board. There are any questions or comments regarding this particular item?
Good to go on consent.
Yeah, me too, I have none.
Good to go. Thank you for checking on this. And now with that, we move to the next item will be 9D on the printed agenda or 9C. Today, review and discuss the board bylaw in conflict of interest. And for that, we are gonna hear from Dr. Gallagher.
Yes, this is another update, this time to a bylaw. And as the title says, it's regarding conflict of interest. The update based on new law has to do with the contributions of more than $250 from any party. And then also, clarifies the fact that we are managing a public investment as a school district and what, how we should conduct or you should conduct yourselves as board members when there's a conflict of interest in that matter.
Okay, if there is any public comments related to item 9B or C, please raise your hand now. Electronic or otherwise, okay, thank you. Board, any comment or question regarding this?
Good to go on consent.
No, good to go, okay, we can move it. And supposed to approval for next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we go to review and action, and that will be item 10. We are starting and moving to 10A public hearing about the sufficiency of textbook supplemental materials and the approval of the resolution R2405 in the matter of sufficiency or instructional materials. And I don't see Christina here. For that, the contact person will be Dr. Valentine, or I suppose Tasha, Dr. Tasha Dean for that. So do we start a public hearing or do you're gonna present before that? Okay.
Yeah, I thought that this one was just a review, so let me go back to that, I'm sorry.
Okay, we just, okay, then with that, we start the public hearing. There is no comment from us or presentation, okay. So with this, we open the public hearing at 8:46 and the item is 10A and we already have a card on that. You wanna talk about this?
We receive any other questions?
Nice company.
If there's any other people, please raise your electronic hand too. And please come ahead, come to the mic and you have 2 minutes.
A minute, okay, a few minutes. No, I don't know if this is appropriate place, right? So one of the things is when I try to attend online as well. So when I present a question on a topic, the person responds back, like Jeremy responded back on the visa thing, and I have a follow-up a lot of times and I'm not able to ask the follow-up. I don't know if it's intentional like that, because you guys discuss a lot and you have follow-ups. As a public, I might have a follow-up question to what he says, which is relevant to the agenda item, but I never have a chance to talk because I'm cut off most of the time. So I don't know if that can be changed because it's still on the topic. It'll be within the 3 minutes. I'm not going to hog the time. No. Okay. It's not allowed.
Well, as soon as you're done with your comments, then the chair will direct any questions to staff. That's how it works. So your comments go to the chair, to go to the board, and then the president of the board will direct any comments to staff. That's the.
Because this is a.
Well, do you have additional public comment right now?
I do have it on this topic, but I had a follow-up to what.
This is your time.
This is your time.
It's your time for that, 3 minutes on this item.
On this item, but I don't care. Okay, I'm just curious to know because the public, as a public, when I'm attending on Zoom, I'm asking a question, she directs it to Jeremy. Jeremy answers the question on the agenda item, but I have a follow-up to his answer still regarding the agenda, but I'm not able to ask that follow-up.
Correct.
If that's how it is?
Yes, because it's yes, we're following the Roberts.
Brown Act.
What?
The Brown Act.
This is
Well, the Brown Act, and there are specific ways.
Anyway,
that
if
we
you
lawfully
have more,
follow
your
this.
time is running, so if you have more comments, and then we'll discuss this.
Yeah. So for this particular thing, I wasn't sure as a public hearing I saw, so I thought I should look at it. I don't even know what sufficient means. So what does sufficient mean? Sufficient of materials, so I assume it's the textbooks and whether it's appropriate for whoever we are serving in the classrooms. But again, with the textbooks, there's a mode of conduct on reviewing the textbook, whether it's sufficient, and you have all these such standards that are supposed to be met within the textbook. All the instruction and materials, which I think are all the education technology tools, I don't think there's a process to figure out whether it's sufficient or appropriate or suitable for the age group we're serving in the district. And so I say it's not sufficient or appropriate. I don't know how to, I just wanted to say that, and I think there should be a rigorous process to looking at these tools. It's not appropriate for some of the younger kids because it creates a lot of other problems, which I can delve into a deep letter. I'll send it to all of you.
Okay, thank you. So part of the question, you want to start with that one? When the procedural question.
It's totally up to you if you want the question.
I'm going to start with the part about procedural. There is we as meeting, we need to follow the laws on.
Right now, you still have open for the public comments.
Oh, you should close the
That's
hearing.
true. Do we have any public comments online?
They didn't enter their name, it's just entered as Zoom user.
Oh, yes, please, if you can add your name and your school affiliations to the next Zoom person, raise their hand.
Go ahead and allow them to speak.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Zoom user?
Hi, I'm sorry, this is Ambrosia Studley. Once the meeting starts, I don't think I can edit.
Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm Ambrosia. I have a 4th grader at Fairwood and a 7th grader at Sunnyvale Middle. And I periodically join these meetings, but I thought I should do this one because it was posted at the middle school about this sufficient materials. And I was like, oh, that sounds important. But I realize now it's probably just something that you just need to do every year. But like I said, it was going to be at 6 o'clock. I don't know. I agree with the other comments of like, what is this? What are you guys talking about? And if it's important, maybe we could share some more information about what these materials are for and why we're doing this. But I really appreciate being able to Zoom in on these meetings. So thank you for the opportunity to comment. And that's the end of my comments.
Thanks, Ambrosia.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ambrosia. Okay, so with that, do we have any other person? Okay, thank you. Then with that, we move to
close the hearing.
Officially close the public hearing.
Yes, we're gonna close the public hearing. That's true. And the time is 8:52, and we close the time for public hearing on this particular item. Okay, so then about the procedures of the questions, this is an open forum, there is a Brown Act, we cannot talk among ourselves in directing anything that has to do with the district. So this is the opportunity we as a board have to talk among ourselves, because we cannot talk more than two at the same time or do any change meetings with anyone referring to any business of the district. Also, we're following I think it's the Robert procedures.
Robert's Rules of Order.
Yes, and there is a particular way, so in order to follow legally the meetings and have an order, so with us being able to hear from the public, one of many ways that we hear from the public, and also being able to conduct the business of the district and make decision in order to move forward. So with that said, yes. Yes.
I'm happy to chat with you more to explain the process later if you'd like, but just a general piece that might be helpful, kind of tagging on to what Isabel said, is this is a meeting of the board done in public, right? So it is a meeting for the board to listen in, but it is not, for the public to listen in, right? But it's not the public's meeting. So if you're having questions for staff and you want to have conversations with them, the best way to do that is to reach out to staff and say, hey, I've got some questions, can I set up a meeting? And then you can do that. But here it's the board's work and public is can participate and listen, but it is the board who is doing work. But I'm happy to explain more later if you want.
Yeah. Also, you can write to us as a board. That is as a public way of information, and it's not we're not breaking Brown Act if you write to us, all of us together, or if it's something with the superintendent and if he thinks it's something that we should know, which I suppose a lot of times is, he will talk to us as a board in general and communicate. But there are many other ways, and we also go around a lot. Some of us go around a lot, and we're always open to talking with the community in general and learn from the community. Other than that, there was also a specific question about what it means, and there is also what is the other one, the Wilson's report that comes that's related to this every year? Williams report, yeah.
Yeah, this is, well, you can explain it, yeah.
To make it real simple, is the criteria to ensure that standards-based curriculum is available and to each of our students in each of our classrooms at each of our campuses. So that's what the sufficiency definition in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's a very objective standard that the state says, do you have these approved textbooks? And does each student have access to one? It's not anything more than that. Yeah, it's very objective.
Yes. It's spelled out in the resolution. It's very clearly defined in there. First, exactly what they mean by sufficient and exactly what they mean by accessible and approved. And so all the terms are defined and they're all defined for every school district in the state.
And if you go to the classrooms, you see at the beginning of the year, there are boxes, and those are the approved by law and approved by us and approved by the state, and then they count, and we normally have a couple of more books because sometimes the kids move away or whatever. So we do have every book there, and then we have an auditor that comes and count that everybody has everything we say that they were going to have. Everybody has a computer, they actually count the books and the kids and the everything, notebooks, everything that we need to have, they count and they say, yeah, it is here, and they have it.
I don't have any questions about this. Can I move that we approve? I'll just move that we approve this, and then
okay, second,
and then we can discuss more.
Oh, I think you are muted, Nancy, but I heard her say that she seconds.
Yeah.
Sorry, I second it.
Yes.
I have it off, so I'm muting it, so
I saw your mouth,
And we can discuss.
And so now can we discuss if there's any discussion? Yeah. Any discussion on this item? Comments, questions?
Oh, I would say that this is a routine matter that annually comes before the board. So I think that California can always do better as far as making some of these complex definitions a little bit clearer. And maybe what we could do in our narrative is to be a little bit more descriptive.
You know, and it's interesting because both of the public comments were really discussing like the deeper vision for what it means to have a student in our district and like what the materials are that they'll have access to, and you know, like what is the dream for the fourth graders and the seventh graders, like what should their experience be like, and is it rich enough? And I think that, you know, I just think it validates needing to do a long-term plan, a strategic plan for the district. And I think that, you know, parent involvement, community involvement, and that is just gonna be awesome because people have that's the part that's interesting for people. It's not whether or not like, have we counted the books? Like they don't care as much. They'll care if we don't have it, but I mean, what they really want is they wanna know, like, are we, you know, really meeting the needs that the kids have. And so I think it's gonna be great.
Good thought. Okay, with that, everybody who is okay with approving this resolution, please say aye.
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 Okay, and with that, it passes. And we move to the next item. Let's see, oh yes, now we're going to the approval to enter into an agreement for architectural services with Quattriochi Knock Architects, QKA, for the Sunnyvale Middle School, a two-story classroom building, and for that we have Brad Burns, the Director of Facilities and Operations. Please welcome.
Hi, good evening. So this is an item for the exciting Sunnyvale Middle School two-story classroom project, kind of running in parallel with the bond conversations today. So as part of this process, we initially brought on LPA for this project to do the design and engineering for the project. During the selection process, we elected to go with Block Construction and their pre-manufactured, pre-checked, DSA-approved Folia building. With that building comes a architect of record with the building, that is QKA. So we had to renegotiate our contract with LPA as well as negotiate a contract with QKA. So now I'm asking the board if we can enter into a contract with QKA.
Those are some like tongue twisters there.
Wow, I was actually impressed with myself,
Yeah, I think you nailed it.
Do you need a motion?
Okay, do we have a motion?
Public comment first.
For this, we start with public comment. If you have any public comment on this particular item 10B, please raise your hand now. No, and with that, board, do we have a motion to approve this item?
I move approval for the agreement by QXA, did I say right? No, not XA.
QKA.
I can't even say it. You did great, Brant. To provide full architectural planning and designing services for the Sunnyvale Middle School two-story classroom building.
I'll second.
Okay, is there any discussion before we vote or questions regarding this item?
Really want to see the drawings. I'm really excited about that presentation coming.
Yes.
I really want to see it.
It'll be awesome.
Okay.
Okay, with that, everybody in favor of approve this, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and with that, we approve the contract.
Thank you.
Now we move to the next item, 10C, and that will be the approval of the Camino Healthcare District Community Benefit Grant Agreement. And for that, we're gonna hear from Dr. Tasha Jean, our Chief of Learning and Learning Officer.
We are fortunate to have the opportunity to present this agreement from El Camino. They've supported us for several years and they are continuing to do so this year. This grant is very important to us as it has allowed us to maintain our appropriate nursing ratios and also support of full-time health assistant positions. And so the grant period is from July 2023 to June 30th, 2025, which is also new because it's a 2-year cycle and typically it's been a 1-year cycle. So coming for approval to accept this agreement between us and El Camino Healthcare District.
Perfect. Is there any comment from the public on this particular item 10C? Please raise your hand now. Seeing none, then we move forward. Board, may I have a motion?
I move to, oh, go ahead, Nancy.
No, I move approval to enter into the El Camino Health District Community Benefit Grant Agreement.
Perfect. Any second?
I'll second.
Okay. With that, any discussions or questions related to this?
I'm just very appreciative of the long-term relationship that we have with the El Camino Hospital District. As Dr. Jean said, it has proved invaluable in leveraging community partnership and community funds to better serve the needs of our students and being proactive instead of responding in a reactive way.
Great. And Michelle?
Mine's just a ditto to that appreciation for the partnership.
Oh, yes. We are getting
I think in
help
the
and grants.
wellness committee, they talked about it, all the different things that the nurses and the healthcare workers are doing, and they always mention the grant, and I don't know if we publicize it in any way on our website or like as a news item, but it seems like a nice thing to do because a lot of people know.
That's actually part of the MOU is that we start doing that.
Yes.
So that's
Oh,
good.
nice, okay.
Yeah. And then the other thing I was gonna say is this item is about this grant. El Camino helps us indirectly by supporting our partners over the years with tons of different ways. So they support CHAC, they've supported Playworks over years, they've supported Acknowledge Alliance over the years. I'm trying to think of what else.
The cow that comes, I think, is paid by them.
No.
That cows that come to school? No? Oh.
No, that's different.
The cow that comes to school.
Sunnyvale Community Services.
That's
A cow
the
literally
dairy
comes
council.
Okay. Yes.
The dairy council sends the cow.
Almost everything.
Not the cow.
But they're a wonderful partner. Anyway, so yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I love the cow. It's coming. Okay, perfect. So with that, I suppose, yeah, we need to vote on that. So if everybody is in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay. Another one. And we approve that. Okay, with that, we move to consent agenda items. And any item on the consent agenda is subject to the review and discussion prior to being approved by the board. If necessary, any items may be removed for separate action. The public may address the board regarding any items on the consent agenda. If the public wants to speak or say anything about the consent agenda items, please raise your hand now. Okay. Nobody, and with that, board, do you want to approve the agenda items as it is right now, or you wanna talk or take apart any of these? Please speak now.
I move approval of the consent agenda as listed.
I will second.
Okay, then, yes, it's a very important bunch of things coming here, so if anyone is whoever is in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
With that, we approve the consent agenda. And yes, which is great, we have inside there the agreement to start our strategic plan. And then we move forward to number 12, And is the information agenda, and it's very up to the point of tonight. We have the William Informed Complaint Settlement Quarterly Report. I don't think we need to do anything about this, or the contact person will be Mr. Jeremy Nishihara. Anything to say? No.
Just an information item to be presented, no action necessary.
Perfect. And with this, I think we can move to point number 13, future meetings and adjournment of the meeting. The next meeting will be Thursday, October 19 at 6 p.m. as a regular board meeting. Anyone agree with that? Then we can adjourn the meeting for tonight. Thank you to our wonderful translators who, as always, stay with us for the whole evening. Bye, thank you, and good night, everybody. Good night. It's 9:08. Good time.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Desmond.
Good night, thank you.